Hello, and welcome to Garblag Games. I'm Pete, hopefully you know that. Tonight, unfortunately, we won't be doing our Pathfinder game, Roads and Ruins, although this may be a familiar backdrop for you from that. A couple of people can't make it, and it's a big, important assault on the plundered smithy. So, what I'm going to do instead is a bit of a dev stream. I've been coming up with a bit of a crazy idea about D&D and the World Mountain, and we'll go into that in a bit. But yeah, two things to say. First, happy Burns Night, everybody. Well, 1801, was that the first one? Something like that? 1800, 1801. So it's like 220-ish years ago. Wow. Cool. So, happy Burns Night, everybody. And also, we reached 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. Yay! Yay! Made me very happy today. So, if you are watching this and you think, hey, I'm not one of those 4,000 people, then hit the YouTube. It's in the chat now. It's in the about on the Twitch channel if you're watching this back later on the VOD, or if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, which is about 45% of our views are by people who haven't subscribed. So if you are watching this back later and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That would be awesome. Thank you. Cool. Okay. So, how are we doing? Yeah, we've got a few people. Voice chat's there. Hello, Leon. Hello, Dragon. Berserker. And a couple of those fake people that they drop into streams. That's cool. I will be drinking wine tonight to fuel my creative efforts, and hopefully my keyboard isn't too loud for you guys, because I'm literally going to be, where are we? Here we go. I'm literally going to be putting into this my Google Doc for the World Mountain version of Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, hello, yes. Because ultimately I want to get something like this. Oh, what was that? Oh, a little bit of art and stuff. I think since writing Dodeca, I do think in a kind of layout format. I don't think I could write a whole role-playing book without seeing any of it laid out first. Like, I think it's quite a process to maybe I'm wrong. Some people do it all in layout. Some people do it write the whole thing first and then they put that into a layout. But I feel like it's this kind of combo of, like, I'm writing stuff, I'm building it up. How big do I want this part of the book to be? How much do I want to bombard them at this stage? How big should the class be? Should it be 2 pages and we put everything else in the back, or should everything for the class be in one place and you have 30 pages? And it's interesting. I've got some stuff to talk about tonight with different versions of D&D and D&D adjacent stuff that I have various thoughts about, and to talk about generally why I'm doing this, other than it just being fun, because I like futzing around with things and trying different things out. I thought it might be fun to try and figure out my own version of the Dungeons and the Dragons. Obviously, it won't be called that for legal reasons, but it might be something like Garblags and Gulags, G&G, or something like that, something stupid. I might just call it Ondrim the World Mountain, adjacent to the most popular role-playing game in the world. Something, we'll figure it out. That's more the point. So I'm just going to occasionally, I have to just check a couple of bits and bobs, and I will be prattling along. Please do whack stuff in the chat to interact, come and talk to me, ask me questions or thoughts on things, or hey, did you see the Expanse finale? Stuff like that. That was awesome. Really enjoyed that. I only said that because Leon's in the chat and I know Leon recently watched it. But yeah, anything that you'd like to chat about, because obviously we're on Twitch and it's good fun for chatting. Woot Expanse, yes, there you go. Woot Expanse. So it was fantastic, and we had a satisfying conclusion to most of it, and then a bit which was like leaving you wanting more, or a little, oh, we're finished, kind of. So that was cool. That was pretty cool. Cool. Anyway, right, on with what I'm talking about. So, we're doing this many editions of D&D game on the channel, sparse, intermittently dotted around in between other games. We've done 3 sessions, 2 are on the channel. Well, Leon, I am rebuilding Dungeons and Dragons, and I will tell you how. So I've been playing BECME, which is the rules cyclopedia here. The basic Dungeons and Dragons, well, just Dungeons and Dragons. The blue, red, green boxes. BECME, basic, expert, companion, master, immortal sets, all wrapped up into this. And for something that's supposed to be basic D&D, it's actually got quite a... I don't know that. Someone asked me African or European? It's actually fairly complex, because they went into weird rules in this around certain weapons against certain types of armor, and it all gets really complicated, and there's lots of charts and tables for hit things, and you get into this kind of world of these kinds, a different kind of complexity, a different kind of confusion that might arise from them. The good old THACO charts and those kinds of things. But it's great, because the great thing about this is, and it's a different era of play, obviously, you get in, you make a character, you get adventuring, and you get going. And what you find in terms of magic items and find out about the world on your adventures is the stuff. Your fighter doesn't get feats every level, you don't get any bonuses, wizards get spells, thieves have skills, and then that's it. But it's all about finding magic items, getting loot, leveling, and also like building fortresses. Hey John, how you doing? Hello Mythos Check, welcome. Yeah, bit of crunch there. Bit of crunch, even though it's basic. This was developed alongside AD&D and 2nd edition, this one. I've got the 1st edition over there, but I've got so many books I'm juggling here, it's kind of a bit silly. So basic, the original red box came out, and then as the expert, companion, master, immortal all came out, that kind of ran alongside the development of advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So I think there were some things that kind of not bled across, but clearly they were thinking along certain lines. Anyway, good stuff. It's like kick the door in, get the treasure, level up, build a fortress, get some henchmen, find magic items. Oh, have you considered leaving Vancian magic system? It always rubbed me wrong. I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that, because I think the Vancian magic system is entrenched in D&D to a certain degree, but not always. Looking at these simpler systems and this kind of era of hex crawls, dungeon crawls, all that kind of stuff, and obviously we're doing Road and Ruins with Pathfinder 2, and thinking, okay, where in the D&D, continuum would I put the game that I want to play? And I think the one that I played the most is probably 3rd edition. Thinking about it, maybe AD&D 2nd edition. I'm not sure. It'd be a close call, I think. And lots of good things about those. 4th edition came along. I've never actually played this. At the time it appeared, and I was one of those people who said, I hate this. It's a game. It's not a role-playing game. It's just a computer game in a book. Blah, blah, blah. They've changed all the stuff. I don't like it. However, I bought it. and there's some interesting things, and I'd actually be quite interested to play it. It's a much more tactical game, but it has a different setup and different emphasis of the characters. And then obviously you've got 5th edition, which everyone knows and loves, probably, and that is a more narrative leaning, still combat. Most of the skills are combat focused, most of the feats and spells and all that stuff, mostly combat focused. But from a character perspective, it's a lot less prescriptive. There's a lot less feats that are mandatory, and there's kind of like you pick your class, you have a subclass, there's a few powers, but it really doesn't go beyond that, and more it's about the story and encourage you to create a big backstory and to think about your character's motivations and drives, and the games and adventures you play are probably more about your characters in this than in this, where it's probably more about the world and the bad guy and the kingdom, that kind of thing, whereas here you're encouraged to do more modern style storytelling, and that's cool. They each have their place, both really good fun. I will play both of them any day of the week. So look, 4E was very good for introducing computer RP gamers to tabletop. Yes. So, yeah, absolutely. This came around after World of Warcraft, and I've heard lots of stories on different channels, and oh hello, bit blurry there. What's going on? Actual plays of people who got into D&D 4th edition from World of Warcraft because it was fairly similar. Goes to work 9 to 5 and gets to go to the pub on Fridays. Yeah, why not? That would be fun. But 4th edition, they kind of broke away from everything, from the other, not everything, but most things. So Vancian Magic, Vancian Magic, which is like the levels of magic and the idea that you memorize a spell, and then when you cast it, you forget it, it's gone, and then the next day you have to memorize the spell again, and that's either through prayer as a priest or from your spell book as a wizard. Even a sorcerer. No, sorcerer doesn't have to, does it? Just, So 5th edition, they kind of got away from it a little bit. Started to introduce the warlocks who just have, a few spells and dish them out at full power all the time, or sorcerers who kind of can mix it up and have their meta magic stuff. Trying to make magic a bit more interesting. Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was interesting in that it went for balance across all the classes. So everyone had the same progression tree, which progression track, leveling up, which is the same in 3rd edition. We all had one central, 2000 XP, 4000, whatever it was. You get your hit dice, you'll get a bonus, you'll get a thing. In 4th edition, you literally had a chart that had for all classes, as you level up, you will all have 4 powers. There's one big character advancement table for all classes, and basically it says, first level, feats known 1, total powers, and gone was the list of spells. Gone was the first, second, third, 9th level spells, all that kind of thing. What happened was, throughout the levels of your character, there were powers that you could pick from, and you knew some of them, and every time you leveled up, you could maybe get some more, but you could also rejig the ones you had in case you were like, I picked one that was rubbish, or not how I want my character to go, so I'm going to retrain, and I'm going to reallocate 1 or 2 of my powers. And instead of having like narrative descriptors of these powers, they gamified them a lot. So instead of having a spell description that said, once per day you may cast this spell upon 4 unwilling creatures, and blah, 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 it said daily power, and encounter, and at will. So at will powers were like, I can use them all the time. And every class had them. It's like fighter had Tide of Iron and various other things that they could use all the time, and it was very rare that you would just go, I'm going to hit someone with my sword. You would go, I'm going to use a daily, an at-will power, because that was always just a bit better than a basic. Having read through it, I'm quite interested in some of the stuff, and the way that they changed some of the the notation, and they kind of simplified everything down into these kind of power blocks, which at the time I remember looking at them and hating them and thinking, my god, what have they done to D&D? They've made it into this horrible computer game. But now, you know, I think it's, in a way, it's almost like a bit early, ahead of its time. A lot of modern games now have very simplified stat blocks and elements in them, but the narrative part separated. So you have like the fluff, but then you have a very concentrated stat block, so when you turn to it, you know everything you need to do in a very concise place. I think the thing it doesn't do here is have very flowery language or anything super descriptive. Often they just have a sentence, and this is kind of, they kind of compartmentalized every class and gave everyone an equal amount of stuff, which is very different. And then we go back to 5th, and it's reverted back. I think there was a big backlash from 4E from a lot of the old school players, and they didn't like the kind of gamification of their game. You know, all the ranges were done in squares instead of feet, even though most of the time you're using, you know, with some games, not all games, 5E, you can play it all, Theatre of the Mind, it's all very good. But like we're playing Pathfinder 2 at the moment, which is, you know, D&D adjacent. Everything's in feet, but I would not want to play Pathfinder 2 without a grid. I just think there's so much to it. It would be painful, and keeping a check of everything and knowing everyone is in your head with all your powers and pushes and steps and strikes and strides and all that kind of stuff, I think it would just be exceedingly tricky. Also, with all of our games sort of being powered, well, not all of our games, most of our games being powered through VTTs, it feels like a modernization that kind of came a bit early. They were trying to build a VTT. There were some unfortunate circumstances, it didn't happen. Now VTT is everywhere. People use it even when they're sitting at the table together. There was an episode of our Flint and Steel Season 3 where I loaded a map into the VTT. We had it on a screen in the room and everyone could see it, and I moved all the characters around on it, and we actually found that a really cool way of managing the combat. We did all the dice rolls at the table, so we hadn't kind of fully done VTT. But I think now, as VTT is kind of obviously expanding, as so many people playing role-playing games on it, it has to be something that you're kind of holding in your head that, you know, how can we account for that, incorporate that kind of thing. So I'm just going to go back over the chat for a second. It's a nice system for beginning, pretty much like 5e. It is a nice system for beginning role players and not so inspiring for people who have been into it. Yeah. Remember them saying you had to sort up the energy for a spell in advance, otherwise it would drain all the wizard's life force. Question for Pete: will you be watching animated show of your greatest competition? I don't really consider it competition. I'll check it out. I'll check it out. To be honest, I haven't watched campaign 3 of Critical Role, which is what Naren Izeka's referring to in the chat. Yeah. I just don't have a lot of time, to be honest, you know. And I watch a lot of our shows so that I know what's going on, and I can see, you know, and talk to people about it and get excited about it and feel like, you know, I want to, because it's our channel. And I watch some things like Expanse, you know. What else did we watch? Ozark. Watched the latest season of Ozark. We blitzed that in a couple of days. That was good. You know, and I don't have the. I don't think I could watch, you know, the whole campaign. I've watched a couple of episodes. Backer's got to watch the first 2 episodes today. It was nice. Yeah. As long as you had a Prime subscription, Amazon Prime. Oh, Archive 81. I'm saving that for watch with the missus. We're just getting through a couple of bits, and then we're going to watch Archive 81. Pete. Hey Pete, good to see you. I'm enjoying the peeks into your game that you've been sharing. Thank you for joining us in the chat. I think Free League need to have a word with Amazon about making a Coriolis show, says Bubble Reg, and then they should have a word with Garblag, so they can adapt the Scheherazade protocol game that Garblag ran. Yes, Ben's show was great. That was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing that. Okay, well maybe we'll start up a petition. But anyway, long and short of that, sorry, talking about various editions of D&D, and I'm just interested in 4th edition because I haven't played it. You know, we're playing this, Pathfinder 2, which I feel is good. But the thing with Pathfinder, for me, is there's just so much stuff. You know, there's the core book, and then every few months there's like a whole new book, which like does, and it's amazing. It's amazing if you are playing in Golarion. But the thing I'm kind of struggling with mentally is developing my own world, and then they release a book. If I were to develop World Mountain, Ondrum the World Mountain, my setting, for Pathfinder 2, kind of exclusively, you know, and try and publish it, then I would constantly be trying to catch up and updating it, because one of the things I want to do is not the Lost Omens books, which are the Golarion specific books, but any that are considered core books. This, the Advanced Player's Guide, the Guns and Gears, the Secrets of Magic, the Undead book. I would want it so that, you know, it would be quite it would be quite simple for a player to think, oh, okay, this is a different setting. I can't use the Lost Omens books, but I can use all the core books. And I don't want. And Pathfinder is all about choice, and it feels like if I say you can only use the core book, people will be like, well, I'm not playing that. I've got Guns and Gears, and I've got Secrets of Magic, and I want to have my, you know, acrobat archetype gunslinger who can shoot his 5-barreled dwarven pistol into the ground and jump 40 feet in the air, you know, and stuff like that. And that's all cool. It's all super cool. Pathfinder is like D&D superheroes. It's yeah, there's a lot to keep up with. And Pathfinder does have a that's probably where people sort of go boo. Oh, Truthful Bernal, hello. Thank you for raiding with a party of 6. Welcome to dev stream tonight. A bit of a chat about I am trying to build my own version of Dungeons and Dragons for Ondrum the World Mountain, and kind of combining some elements. Oh, Pathfinder. Oh, hi Raiders. Well, sort of Pathfinder, but there's elements of Pathfinder. I really like the action economy in Pathfinder 2. I like the 3-action system, and I like the fact that certain things can take 1, 2, or 3 actions, and some spells. As an example, you can have a 1-action option, a 2-action option, and a 3-action option, and then you can basically power up your spell however you want to in a round. I love that. That is amazing, and I'm going to steal that. I'm going to straight up steal 3-action combat economy. It's just brilliant. So I'm making no, I'm not hiding anything. I'm straight up stealing rules. You can't copyright rules. I'm not stealing setting and all that kind of stuff. They've got my own setting. We're going to have some rules and some other things that I've thought about. My favorite thing about Pathfinder versus D&D, DCs for skills and their various actions are explicitly defined. Yes, yeah. I mean, Pathfinder is very. I think it has to be because of all the big numbers involved and everything's leveling up all the time. The one thing I didn't like about Pathfinder 2 is because, and I know there's alternate rules for it, but you have to do some fudging, because your proficiency bonus has your level baked in. And I haven't played it at high level, so I may be speaking out my butt, but it feels like by the time you get to 10th level, I wouldn't care if I'm trained or an expert or a master or legendary in something, because that I would care, but that benefit would be smaller than my level. So it's like, is it plus 10 or plus 12 or plus 14? Okay, I'm rolling pretty well, and I've got a plus 3 striking greatsword of flaming powers. So it's like, maybe I'm wrong there, but that's what I get a sense of. But also, what it did for me is because I want to play Pathfinder. I start on role-playing with AD&D. Hey, Carlos PC. Yeah, AD&D. Brilliant. Just saying earlier on, that's one of my faves. This one here, AD&D 2nd edition, was my one. We tried first edition, had some interesting rules, and not everything in the player's handbook, and a lot in the DM's guide and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, with Pathfinder, having the level baked into proficiency meant that if you want to have a character, because the rules apply to everyone, right? If you want to have like a super weaponsmith, that dude has to be like a level 20 character. He can't just be a guy who's sat in a smithy working away on his crafting for years. He doesn't have to fight anyone. He's not done anything else. The Lord has protected him because he makes the best armor. You know, that kind of thing. It didn't have... there was a second edition. All right, John. It kind of ties... So when you look in the Games Mastery Guide, which is a great book, lots of different options for Pathfinder 2, loads of alternate subsystems and all those kinds of things. When you look in the back at the NPCs, you want a super smith. He's also got like plus 15 to attack someone, and like, what? It kind of, you know, didn't quite level out for me, and I thought skills should be influenced by your level because your experiences in the world will give you a benefit in. So if I learn how to craft things, I should be able to get really good on my own. But going out and seeing things will help me get better. So I wanted to kind of reflect a bit of that as well. So I want 3 action economy. I want kind of clearly defined things, less woolly things, but to have the fluff adjacent so that I can talk about these things, you know, say, oh, when you describe these things, really go into them, examples of this, this and that, you know, add some fluff in. And there's not much fluff in it yet. So when I show you what I'm writing, there won't be that much fluff in it because I'm trying to think about the rules. Yeah, 3 action economy, clearly defined things, fluff adjacent to that, and I wanted to, sorry, taking the little one to bed, and kind of have a little bit of more balance between all of the classes, so that you have, you know, your fighter can learn things and do things and is getting interested beyond, you know, just, oh, I go up a level, my THACO reduces by 1, you know, that kind of thing. Which, if you're playing AD&D 2nd edition, if you look at what your levels give you, there's not a lot there. However, that wasn't what the game is about. So, lots going into all my thoughts. And then 2 other things. I published my role-playing game Dodecker, which had the kind of narrative character creation system. But one of the big things in there, which I should have probably done a bit more on in the book, was around what I call, you had your legend, which was 5 sentences that made up your character. Gave you stat bonuses, but they made like a little story about your character. I was born amid storm and thunder. You know, the world taught me to take advantage of the weak and all that kind of stuff. It's all kind of grim and dark, hence it being a grim dark game. And I created the journey, which is basically a narrative experience system where at the end of an adventure, 2 or 3 sessions, or like a good milestone according to the games master, you could, as a player, you could suggest an event which was really cool that would lead to you gaining something in a skill, and have this kind of narrative experience system where you would need to get the games master and one other player to agree that it kind of fit. So, you know, you take down a series of bad guys and kill the leader of the cult. You know, your prowess skill might go up because you got better at fighting, that kind of thing. So that was the idea in Dodecker, that you would have this kind of collaborative experience where you know, each proposed what the other person had done, or said stuff that you thought was really cool, or you're like, oh, I deliberately was fighting all these bad guys because I want to get better at fighting, because I'm the warrior and I just want to get better at fighting, you know, that kind of thing. You could have a story to it, and slowly you would build up a journey, and you'd have to come up with a cool sentence for your journey. Slew the leader of the dark cult, you know, and things like that. And your journey would just kind of build up, and you would be able to look back at it. And this actually comes from my work, where having a team of people reporting to me, I often say to them, it's good for you to write everything down that you've done, even if it's just headlining the projects, because when it comes time to do your end of year review, that list is going to help you. It's this kind of like, you can look back on your character and see their legend, where they came from, and then their journey, where they've gone. So that kind of came to me. And then I also watched a couple of videos, playing the game, running the game videos from Matt Colville. We was talking about different kinds of rewards. And he was talking about like adventures where you should, a bit like a computer game. And to be fair, he's quite a proponent of 4th edition D&D and spent a lot of time in computer game design. But I liked the idea. He said, why are people going to go out into these areas and explore them if you don't give them some incentives? Or how will you get them to do a certain behavior? How do people know what's expected of their character or their class if they don't know that if they do X, they will get Y? So I think he was talking about a system of kind of adventure rewards where you could say to someone, if you explore this tomb, you could find this relic, and literally having like a card where you put it on the table and you could say, right, this is the adventure, put down this card, so people can look at it and go, not tell them what it is, what the relic is, but look at it and go, oh yeah, we definitely go on there. And narratively, these could be based on rumors. You can hear about these in the taverns. You may have a few of them, and people say, oh, you don't want to go over there, there's a Minotaur in there, and ever since the last adventuring party went there, no one's come back. You could say, slay the Minotaur, get all the loot from the dead adventurers, or something like that. And you could put them down on the table, and then the players can literally sort of see those and be reminded of them. And he got some good feedback on that. I thought that's an interesting idea. It's quite gamification, but it is a game, so why not explore that? And the kind of narrative character creation process I thought about for Dodecker kind of bumped into my head and thought, these are kind of adjacent. And then he said, now obviously he's thinking from a probably a sales product perspective. He said it'd be great to be able to like rebuild everything from the beginning, but you can't do that. So, and I think a lot of that is probably around the fact that he wants to sell products that tie to 5th edition. Because I think if 5th edition was in the current edition of D&D, he'd probably be happier. If he had 4th edition to work off, he'd probably, I don't know, I put words in his mouth, but I just get that feeling slowly he's kind of pointing out all the bad things of 5th edition and trying to change them or add things that are slightly more 4th edition. But it occurred to me, hang on, I'm not trying to sell a product yet. I don't have a series of 5th edition products out there that I would instantly make obsolete if I generated a new version of Dungeons & Dragons which was different from the ground up. I'm just Pete. I'm just over here, Garbler Games, doing my little thing. Got a little Dodecker out, nothing crazy. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if you created a leveling system in Dungeons & Dragons where it was driven by experiences rather than experience points. So, in effect, a first level fighter can gain all the things that you think of as being a second level fighter. Or you aim, you think, when I get to second level, I'm gonna instantly get these 3 things. Ding, ding, ding. Why not flip that and say, when I've learnt these 3 things, I become second level. And then at second level, a new tranche of abilities are open to me to get me to 3rd level. And I thought, okay, right, well, what kind of things would fighters have? I just started with fighter because I thought, let's start somewhere and let's work on it and get some stuff down on paper. You know what it's like. I just like to get going because you can start to change. If I find that if I think about things for too long at the beginning, I end up not doing them. Or I go, that's really good. I need to think about it a bit more. Maybe I'll make a few notes. I'll come back to that at the weekend and I'll sit down and write something. No, I just start writing something, stick it on the Discord. By the way, if you're not on our Discord, do come and join us. We just hit 600 members on our Discord, so there's good community on there. Awesome people talking about TTRPGs, movies, games, all kinds of other stuff. Arguing, getting along, all kinds of things. It's fantastic. So I threw a few things on there, and some people said, "Oh, I like that," or "I don't like that," "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And I thought, okay, cool. So I kind of wanted to build this kind of different system, and then, you know, as my brain is wont to do, it kind of goes in slightly different directions. And what I do is I let it go a little bit, and then I try and rein it back in, and then carry on. Don't forget the dreaded GIF wars. Yes, there is the GIF war channel on the Discord. It keeps us all going, I think. Often I go onto the Discord and I can see, oh, someone's commented on something. I keep scrolling. Oh, it's the GIF war. And someone's put a new GIF on the GIF war. But hey, it's fun. You know, it's like a little weird stream of consciousness, collective consciousness. It's a bit odd. So I was thinking, if we're going to do this, I muted the GIF war so fast. I haven't muted any channel. I'm not allowed, I don't think. I kind of thought, what classes do I want to have in this? If I'm actually going to do this and actually put some effort into it, then the World Mountain is my world and my setting. I should probably have a little think about what classes I want, because that will tell me what I want them each to do, and I don't want to include too much in the fighter that I might include in a fighter adjacent class. And, hey Nonoli, good to see you in the chat. So it's so here we go. What I did was I had a little think, and I was thinking, I like some of the stuff in AD&D 2nd edition. I like some of the stuff in D&D 4th edition. I like a lot of the stuff in 5th edition. How can I smush a load of that together and throw in my own flavour, mostly in the kind of magical sense? So I came up with like a list. Oh, here we go, scrolling past things. Oh, look, Ondrim the World Mountain, my D&D. Look at that. Why not? We've all got our own D&D. We all have home rule. We all house rule. I just get in this weird phase where I start to like try and publish things. Oh, John should recognise that. And by check. So I came up with a list, and a pinch from somewhere else here. I'm not having multi-classing in my game. I dislike the build conversations that occur, and here's me being a grumpy old man. But hey, it's my D&D. You know, and what I've done is I've kind of made a bit like Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. If you haven't had a look at that, check it out. It's an AD&D 2nd edition clone, and it's got lots of classes, because it's kind of things like Templar, Warrior, Champion of Justice, or Knight, separate classes or jobs within the fighter class. Well, John, if you look, Kargan Demon Claw, there are blends of classes, almost like multi-classing, but in a specific class. So with fighter, obviously I haven't bothered writing too much about the core class. I wanted to have fighter, cleric, magic user, and thief, and I wanted to have those just to be a little bit old school. I've been playing Beckme, and I do like the old school days of those names, but we shall progress from there. So under fighter, I've got Berserker. I never liked the idea that all barbarians rage. I don't like that. I like the idea of a raging warrior, and to me that's a Berserker, because barbarians have clerics and thieves and all kinds of things. They're not all just raging lunatics. So that was one change I made. Then I had Commander. Now Warlord in 4E is actually a class that really interests me. It's because the game's very tactical, and there's a lot about controlling the battlefield and shunting and shifting people and moving them around or giving abilities to other people. And in Pathfinder 2nd edition, there's the martial archetype, which is actually A bit different from the other archetypes. Most of the other archetypes are 1 page. A couple of them are 2 page, but the martial is like a big 2 page spread with loads of abilities. It's really cool, and it's all about this kind of tactical control. And I like the idea of a warrior who was there to support the others, like really to like give instruction or point things out, or off, like the commander will be able to sacrifice their actions so other people can do it. So if they know, hey, look, I can't shoot this guy because he's immune to my weapons, but the wizard, if he had another action, he could cast the fireball. Right, shout a command, you can now do another action. Bosh, that kind of thing. And buffing other people as well. Then you've got Paladin and Ranger. I wanted to go classic. I like what Pathfinder's done with Champion, but there's something about the word Paladin. I can't explain it. Let's see. Let's not forget Conan was also a thief. Conan was multi-class, wasn't he? He was a thief from, he would climb up towers and break in and murder people. Warlord was the only 4E class that I liked. My favourite build for Alternity was Diplomat with combat spec, secondary class with tactic and command skills. That sounds like you're trying to build a Warlord in Alternity. Alternity is a cracking little game. Very cool, very funky, very different, and therefore it was deleted. So, as you can see on my list there, Paladin is a fighter with a bit of Cleric. Ranger is a bit of a thief and Bloodcaster, and Bloodcaster is going to be my own thing, where they can literally use I know, not like you weren't actively doing it, but like a similar role. Sorry, Naraniteka, I realise Alternative was ages ago. So the Ranger can do a bit of blood magic, which is about people and charms and things, and sort of about marking people. And some thief skills, or some thief feats that will power up skills, because I have gone away from having the set thief skills, just to let you all know. So there's not like 2nd edition where you have your thief track, and as you go down levels your skills get better. Thieves will get feats, which will give them big boosts to skills. Then we've got Cleric, we've got Druid, who's a nature cleric, Inquisitor, which is not like, I'm not going around torturing everyone, but this is like people who investigate things against the church, or strange goings on, or people go missing out of a congregation. They might send an Inquisitor who's a bit world-wise. Then you've got the Monk. I'm tempted to call them Adept instead of Monk, because Monk has a very strong aesthetic and cultural baggage with it, but all of these words do anyway, so I thought, why not? But physical and spiritual adept, body and mind, that kind of thing. And then Templar will be cleric with a bit of fighter. So this is more about defending the organized religion. So Paladin is about like an oath to a god and being like, haha, I'm a hero because a god has picked me and I'm super duper and I can heal you, lay on hands. Whereas the Templar is like, I am a man of the faith of the church and I am here to defend the church, like literally. The Paladins are off adventuring, so it's kind of slightly different. They'll be more defensive and more about heavy armor and protecting people, whereas a Paladin will be about going out and like smiting people and then occasionally healing someone who's like dying. Then we get to magic users. We got magic user, and I wanted to keep magic user because then I created these other names that sound of a similar vein. So we've got rune crafter. Runes are going to be a big thing in the World Mountain. The world is built by dwarves. They're the original ancestry, and their magic, there are dwarf wizards, their magic is runic, and they use it to do lots of things. There are runic gates, which are like teleportation circles, but like gates, doorways, and that kind of stuff. So runes are they're going to be able to drop runes onto things, make things magical, that kind of stuff. Temporary buffs. They'll be able to put a rune on a wall that's like an exploding trap, that kind of thing. Bloodcaster. So this is all about people, passions and emotions and charming and that kind of thing. That's why it's blood caster. But they will also be able to literally hurt, not like physically hurt themselves, because don't obviously wouldn't want to portray that in any kind of positive light, but to drain themselves of physical strength to cast magic. Rune crafters will be able to destroy runes as well to cast magic beyond their normal allowance, and magic users will be able to destroy stuff, use material components to cast spells beyond their normal means. And they've got Ice Seeker, one of the big things in Arlon, which is this lovely realm that you can see here. If you notice up above, there is Glorim, that big stalactite mess up the top there. Is another layer of the world mountain that sits above Arlon. Arlon is huge, and Glorim's kind of half the radius of Arlon. And there's like an elemental ocean. I keep saying elemental ocean like that means something to people, but think a mixture of the ethereal plane and hugely tropical ocean. Yeah, with like Leviathan creatures, sharks, Fey creatures, all kinds of stuff in there. And the thing about this is it's open at the bottom as well. It's magic. And you can access it from below and above. But also all the water and rain on Glorim seeps through the layer and comes down to Arlon with the kind of magic of Glorim in it. And on the mountains it forms ice in certain locations, and this ice is like a battery almost. It's like stored magic juice from above. So they kind of there are groups who go after this ice and they can use it and like expend it, use it up, heat it, that kind of stuff to do more magic. So that's one of the other things. And then Spell Sword, because you know, who doesn't want to have the opportunity at one point to be like a dude who can cast lightning down his sword, or you know, she can do fireballs from her punches and things like that. So it's kind of, you know, is the underside of the ocean flat, or are there waves and tides? There's waves and tides on the underside. It's like, but it's not like halfway through the ocean gravity flips. It's like an ocean all the way through. The bottom is just water as well with waves. So make of it what you will. It's magic. Cool. Then we have the Thief, and under Thief we have Assassin. Went away for a bit because it was in 18D First Edition as a pure class. Went away for a bit. Came back in 5e of all games as a one of the main subclasses in the core rulebook. But this is basically a Thief with a bit of fighter. So a bit more weapon skills, you'll be able to get proficiencies a bit earlier, that kind of thing. Bard, so there'll be a bit of magic, bit of thief, bit of fighter, bit of everything in there. Spell Sword sounds awesome. Cool. Well, I want some of them to sound. I want them all to sound awesome, but obviously, you know, that's cool. And then we've got the Dungeoneer, who is a thief who is specifically trained or goes out of their way to go into underground complexes. As I said, the world is built by dwarves, which means there's lots of tunnels everywhere, and especially on Arlon, there are various Doomiers, which are underground cities. That's the word for in Dwarvish, and some of these are old ruins. So I just got to turn this radiator down. Sorry, my current setup has me with my back pretty much to a radiator, so as you can see, get a little bit hot. So Dungeoneer is all about going into the underground and fighting monsters, disarming traps, helping people to uncover the ancient relics of the past. I did want to have some of that old school flavour of there's like bigger ancient things. Hey, Spider Queen Long, how you doing? Good to see you in chat. Hello. There's some of these old places, you know, lost empires, fallen dwarven citadels. The darkness came up from underneath. And in fact, in Roads and Ruins, the adventurers are exploring an area that used to be known as Bargdoomir, and that was a huge, and when I say huge, these things are massive, underground citadel, and it crumbled 300 years ago, and since then all the rain coming down from Glorium has just turned the whole place into this verdant wilds, and now they're picking through the trees and things to find all that stuff. Oh, sorry, that went away. How did that go away? So we've got Thief, we've got Assassin, Bard, Dungeoneer, and then Inventor, who makes cool stuff. I've noticed that, you know, there are a few of these classes now in Pathfinder and D&D, and I thought it'd be quite cool to have the capability for longer crafting and those things. I think that'd be something I'll need to put a bit of thought into how that system will work. And then, as usual, I just start writing stuff. So, Cleric, Fighter, Magic User, Thief. But what I wanted to do was have a different core system and kind of merge 5th edition and Pathfinder 2 in a way. Now, 5th edition, I always thought it's a bit clunky when you get some of those abilities where it says, hey, add half your proficiency bonus on again, and it's like, it's a bit weird, and it's just written in like a block of prose, text, and it's hard for you to kind of find and know. Thieves and bards and people like that get those kind of things, or some other subclasses get it for particular skills. And I always thought, hang on, it's a shame that they don't have like proficient and master, so you had like a second step on your proficiency track. And then got Pathfinder 2, and I was like, oh, they've done it. It's like trained, expert, master, legendary, 4 levels, +2, +4, +6, +8. And then you add your level onto that as well. Have you looked into Magic the Gathering Worlds? They are really wild and surprising, high octane magic in line of AOS. I've looked at the Theros. Sorry, just answering Narodin Zeka's question from the chat. Have you looked into Magic the Gathering Worlds? They're really wild and surprising. We did a one shot of Mythic Odysseys of Theros, which I really enjoyed. I was a Centaur Bard, Thunderhoof, and I did all my spells were thunder based, and I did them by clopping my hoofs together, and really like the kind of heroic idiom, of those old myths and legends. That was quite cool. I'm not sure I'm really that interested in Strixhaven, but I would give a go to the other one. Can't remember what it's called, but it's the one where it's kind of factions in a city kind of thing. I know Ben's got that one. So what I wanted to do was kind of combine those, but have not such a quick ramp up of the scores. Tree for Bernal, have a look. Go on our channel. We've got a Theros one shot. It's just a one shot. It's a good intro to it. Jim did a great job with that adventure, and we all had a lot of fun playing our characters, and we all really got into it. It's like Dan playing his like pacifist character, and me and Ben trying to one up each other with kind of feats of legendary magic and stuff like that. It was really good fun, and a Cyclops and all those kinds of things. Very cool. So what I was trying to do is add a little bit of complexity, yes, because I think the proficiency system in D&D is 5e is pretty straightforward and a little bit dull, but not have the massive ramp up of scores that you get in Pathfinder 2e. Now, funnily enough, D&D 4e is kind of a halfway house where you get a +2 and half your level, which is kind of interesting. But again, only one proficiency score. So I wanted to kind of mash the two things together and go, right, we've got a progressing score across multiple scores, and effectively what you'll do is you will be a novice, expert, or master proficient in things. I also wanted to remove this is not going to be as super heroic as Pathfinder 2, but it's not going to be as grubby grimy as basic D&D. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. It's going to be like 3rd edition, maybe 5th edition, just under kind of superheroism. Colonel Monty is now a pacifist foxy. Yeah. So here we've got this. We've got my ramping of proficiencies, and I've only got 10 levels. I don't know whether that's actually a design feature yet, or whether I'm just limiting myself to not like develop 30 levels of a game, you know, that kind of thing. And in fact, what I want to do is build the first 4 classes: Cleric, Fighter, Magic User, and Thief, and build 3 levels for each of them. So in fact, that's only 2 levels of advances, because you start at first level, and then you advance up to second level, and you advance up to third level. So, and then ask some of our lovely community if they wouldn't mind play testing it, and I'll probably run it on the channel just to try it out, just to see if it's a mess. And it may be a mess, but it will be fun. And this is what we all do with our games anyway, isn't it? I know we do a lot of stuff on the channel which is homebrewing adventures. We do a lot of stuff which is the written adventures, and now I thought it'd be quite cool, you know, to show I'm just making shit up. So we've got this sliding scale of proficiency. It goes up as we go, and you will be able to upgrade your proficiency in skills, weapons, armor. We could game with a Garblag for that. And thank you for bringing it up, John. Those of you who may not know, you're watching this back later, on our Patreon, which are lovely supporters, thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you do support our Patreon at certain levels, you get different benefits. And at the Explorer level, what's that, $15 a month, you get to play a game once a month with a Garblag. And the last couple of months we've been doing Pathfinder 2 in a parallel world alongside, not literally alongside, like a mirror universe. Basically the patrons are competent characters and the show is the incompetent characters, as I like to say. You might also want to check the GM's guide. They have a section on simplifying. That is very true, Omega MTV, and I mentioned that earlier on in the stream. There is an alternate rule for proficiency. It's proficiency without level. The problem is you then have to go and lower all the numbers everywhere else, and that's fine. That's a useful thing. You can do that, and that's great if you want to kind of damp down the numbers. There are other things about Pathfinder I want to change, you know, and do a slightly different. And you'll see soon that basically flipping the advancement. So rather than you gain a level and you get powers, what happens is you learn powers, and that gets you a level. And I wanted to kind of simplify skills. Often I find that people are like, well, there's like loads of skills, and there's like 3 different influencing skills, but there's only one craft, you know, or that. And there's athletics and acrobatics. Basically, people just pick whichever one they want to use. So I thought I was just going to simplify the skills a bit, and you get your proficiency bonus and your ability modifier, and that's your score. And then some things will give you a temporary bonus based on feats or magic items and that kind of thing. Usual kind of calculation, you know. So nothing different. I wanted some of the elements, namely some of the maths you have to do, to be similar to 5th edition, so that people could, you know, give it a go without too much difference. I think the main thing is how obviously proficiencies work slightly differently, but Pathfinder 2 people will find that familiar, and the maths work like 5th edition, so they'll find that familiar, and then the classes are different for everybody else, for everybody. So, but that's kind of the crux of what I've changed. So there's different skills and there's different specialties that fall under them. Basically, there's specialties there. Different feats will provide you bonuses to specialties. Like the fighter has an ability called Warrior's Bearing, so a number of times equal to his Constitution modifier a day. I should probably make that 1 plus Constitution modifier a day. They can use their physicality to get they put a mean look on, they get their swagger on, they kind of tense their muscles a bit, and they make themselves seem more intimidating, and they can get a +2 bonus to their influence intimidate checks for the next 10 minutes, something like that. So that's a kind of example of one of the feats and how it might benefit you. So that's kind of like the underlying kind of crux of the main change to kind of proficiency. as you can see, not as drastic numbers, and I'm having to do some calculations as I go when I start to label things with DCs, and I think that's where a lot of the playtesting would actually come in, just to make sure it's kind of balanced across, the bonuses you're getting versus the challenges you're facing. Are those two things, do they feel like they work? I think that's kind of one of the main bits that will need testing. I think I've got a fairly good grip on a lot of how to build all the other stuff, and it's just that kind of area. Obviously there's a lot of content to do. So what then? So next I kind of went into the fighter and I thought, hey, why don't we build out a class with a level and see what it looks like. So I've got slightly older school saving throws, just to reflect different things. So you've got poison, which is like resistance to things inside the body, charm, devices, so magical items that have no particular elemental leaning or that kind of thing that have an effect on you, but there's no one in control of them. That would be that. Evasion is clearly jumping out of the way, and then spell is if someone casts a spell at you, you need to make a saving throw and it doesn't fit under any of those, then use your spell saving throw, because there may be some stuff like that. Also, it allows me to have a little bit more flexibility between the classes. So one of the reasons I wanted 5 rather than 3 is because I've got 20 classes. It gives a bit more room to move it around. Wizards will be better at resisting against spells because they understand them better. Thieves will be good at evasion and devices. Fighters will be good at poison and charm and evasion, and then there'll be a mixture everywhere in between. Clerics are kind of +1 across the board because they're just like protected by their god, that kind of thing. You get hit dice 1d10. One of the changes I wanted to make, or not change, I suppose, expansion from 5th edition, is you start to talk about using your hit dice. So you take a short rest, you can spend your hit dice to recover hit points, and then on a long rest you can recover up to half your hit dice. And I thought hit dice would be quite cool. They give like superiority dice and all these other things to classes, which kind of add an extra. I've got to think about that. But I thought, hang on, why don't you use your hit dice? Your hit dice are like a pool of your inner resources. Hit points is obviously like my stamina and blood, and getting out of the way, but also getting hit and surviving it. Whereas hit dice is like my, I've got like my inner, and I'm gonna like pull out my big guns. So first level fighter begins with the feat, which is take a breath. So you spend a hit die and you roll 1d. So spend a hit die means take it out, you pull. It's spent for the day until you rest. And you roll 1d6 and recover that many hit points. Now, at one point I had roll your hit die and recover that many hit points. But it occurred to me that if all of the abilities were based on your hit die value and how big it was, then a fighter's hit die would be worth more in the trade-in than a wizard's hit die, a magic user's hit die, or a cleric's hit die. So what I thought is, when you trade in a hit die and it adds something, like you have to roll an extra die to add to damage or roll to hit or something, then it will be a d6 to kind of standardize the benefit gained from a hit die. Hopefully that makes sense. When will you be playtesting this? I don't know. Once I've written 4 classes with 3 levels each, I will give it a playtest. Oh, excuse me. Also, hopefully the music hasn't been too loud this whole time, which I've had just playing in the background. Maybe it's very quiet and you can't even hear it. I don't know. And as you can see here, the fighter begins with a novice proficiency in simple and martial weapons. So I'm keeping some of the naming conventions of 5th edition. It's the latest version of Dungeons & Dragons. It makes sense. Music is good. Cool. Thank you, Toasty Philosopher, and welcome to the chat for the first time. Cool. Okay, good. I'm sure someone would have said by now, the music is too loud, we can't hear you, Pete. Or, thank God the music is so loud, we can't hear you, Pete. So, yeah, novice in simple and martial weapons. those terms are familiar. I want to have some familiar aspects for Pathfinder and D&D 5th edition, which might bring people in to try it. Think about it. That might help me eventually one day, like, publish this and get it out there. I've published one game before. It's not beyond my means or brain power to publish another one, even if it's like a small A5 booklet kind of thing, like Old School Essentials or something like that. Then that would be cool. We've got Novice in light and medium armor. Now I'm wrapping shields into armor types. I always find it annoying that they just have and shields on the end, so I'm going to have bucklers, shields, and like heavy shields. So you've got light armor, you know how to use a buckler. If you've got medium armor, you know how to use like a normal standard kind of knight shield or Viking round shield, that kind of thing. And if you're used to heavy armor, you know how to use like a Pavis or a kite shield, or something bigger like that. And as you can see, the fighter doesn't actually start with heavy armor at the moment. I might just give them heavy armor as well. I was going to have that as a 2nd to 3rd level upgrade. As they get used to fighting, they can get heavy armor earlier than other people, but I don't know. Let me shout out in the chat if you think that's stupid, them not having heavy armor, or where they should have it. And then I've got Novice in athletics, because I think they should. Fighters do lots of running around, climbing, jumping, just wearing armor all the time and moving around will get you, working out a bit. Spend a hit dice. Yeah, hey, Cownan. Yes, it's a new. Your hit dice are a pool of dice you can spend in some of your abilities to do certain things. So it has a limiting factor. So your level will indicate how many hit dice you have, and therefore how many times you can use your special powers before you have to do like a long rest, or something else like a spell rejuvenates your hit dice or something like that. No heavy armor early is a good thing. Yeah, I like the idea that a first level character isn't like already a superhero fighter, but has been in the militia or something, or the army. They're not going to suit them all up in plate mail, are they? They're going to put them in chain or leather, studded leather, brigandine, that kind of thing, and they're going to go off and fight. And then you go up the ranks and they go, right, you've done really well, here's a two-handed sword and a bit of plate mail. There you go. Can't afford heavy armor at level 1 anyway, but, well, maybe, who knows? I haven't done the equipment list yet. So there's a couple of feats that they start with. So a level 1 character has some capabilities. Intimidate a bit better because they're warriors. Normal people are scared, people are intimidated by the police and things like that. Someone or the military in the real world, just normal commoner like myself would see someone with a gun and be like, ugh, so that kind of thing. I wanted to reflect that. They've got a warrior's bearing. And then take a breath. It's kind of like a second wind or something from 5th edition. I also wanted to have change the name slightly, here and there, but some things will be the same, like magic missile, that kind of stuff. Then we move on to the interesting part. This is the big change. So instead of saying, right, you go out and gain 2,000 experience points, and when you doing all that stuff, I'm going to make you level 2, and bing, you get these 3 abilities. What I've done instead, you don't get experience points. That doesn't happen anymore. You don't have to worry about that. What you have is these 6 things on your character, 6 cards. I'm not sure how this is all going to be represented, but I'm thinking maybe a deck of cards would be good for fighters. Then you can these are my level 1 ones, right? Lay them out, and you could literally with a dry erase marker tick these circles as you complete the goals. So let's take. Can I zoom in a bit? Does that help? Here you go. We'll take basic forms. So I'm trying to think of names for these things. Basic forms. So you're getting better at fighting. Your forms of, So this is Fighter Advanced 1, so you can get it at first level. The goal is to defeat 10 combatants with weapons from the same group. And here, something exciting. Look, I've added the 3rd weapon group, Gunpowder. Because in the World Mountain there is the city of Neckelvang, which is a gnomish stalactite city that hangs from underneath of Glorim, the layer above Arlorn. And here the gnomes, these brilliant gnomes, have invented gunpowder. And they have started to manufacture guns and weapons, gunpowder weapons, bombs, guns, pistols, and started to sell them to the wealthier individuals of Arlorn. And some people learn how to use them. So at this point, although you didn't have proficiency at the beginning, here is an incentive to go out and try and use gunpowder weapons. Now, although they will probably be expensive, what you probably find is if you say to your games master, and this is where it all gets a bit narrative and you're talking to people about your kind of journey and how you want to do it, you know, you might say, oh, it'd be really cool if I could try out, are there going to be any guns in this adventure? Or, you know, my character's heard about guns and wanted to go to Neckelvang and understand what's going on. Your GM might throw in a simple gunpowder weapon, a very basic one, that would allow you to try the weapon. And if you defeated 10 combatants with that weapon, each time you defeat one, you tick one of those little circles. The first one of those to get to 10, boom, you've completed that advance. And the reward is you upgrade your proficiency in the weapon group used. So, if you run around with a mace, knocking orcs on the head, you do it 10 times, you defeat 10 orcs, you know. The idea is that as you fight things, you get better. And it's doing two things, I think. One, it's making your advancement narrative. So I have to go out and fight. I have to go out and do stuff. Like, there's a story to, you know, I'm not like, oh, I need a bag of points to become level 2. You know, you're like, I went and fought these things, then I get a critical hit, then I went out, I walked, you know, and did this and I did that, and then boom, I'm level 2. And level 2 doesn't do anything apart from allow you to get into a new level of advances. So you don't gain hit points from leveling up. You gain hit points from hero in training. Survive 5 battles against multiple opponents and make 6 successful athletics skill checks. And then you gain a hit die. Making the advancement based on failures rather than successes. I have, Leon, much like some other systems. However, I think because the XP system in D&D is about achieving things, I wanted to, and it has that more heroic kind of progression, and will be more difficult when you get higher up. I know that's part of the reason for doing it, but I can state whatever I want in these to make them difficult for higher level characters because they're individual advances. If the whole system worked off of a certain way of doing it, I always lose those reward cards. Well, they'll be in the book, they'll be in there, and you know, I can see like little like the when we played Zweihander, they had these cool little player books. They were not massive, they were like 14, 16 pages, something like that. It just had loads of like cool bits in there for a player. I could see like creating like little pamphlets that could, you know, for a fighter. You're a fighter, okay, you can get this print on demand fighter booklet. It's got all of these in there, and you tick them off, tick tick tick, got it, boom, gain a hit die. Right, every time you gain a hit die, you roll it, you add that to your hit points plus your constitution modifier, and then your hit die goes in your pool. So hero in training, I'm a first level fighter, I've got 2 hit dice. Wow, this is cool, this is awesome, you know. You do that before the other ones and you're like, cool, I'm running around. Talking about the rule cards from yeah. It's not tick 6 and tick 5 and get one free. But it is a good thing to think about. You know, packs of cards are cool, but you know, if you mark them or lose one of them, then you be like, oh, I just don't know where the hero in training card is. But I think cards are cool as well. Like the spell cards for D&D are fantastic little aids, you know. And I think 10, 20 years ago, I would have been like, no, you can never have cards depicting your skills and powers in a role-playing game. That's a board game. And it's like, no. You got to broaden, you got to use all the resources available, you know. And role-playing games are multimedia experiences now. Online, boards, cards, whatever you want to throw into it. If it helps the fun and the experience, then I think it's worth it. So, we might have cards, we might have class-based pamphlets, booklets, that kind of thing. So you can go and get your Bard book, fill all your stuff in, and then it might have Bard specific things at the back, like songs you've written and stuff like that. That kind of thing. So I think that could be quite cool. Let's have a look at these other ones then. So this is where so this is the thing, right? So as I said, some of you joined a bit later, but at the beginning I said I like to think about the layout as I'm going along, because I want to think about the components of a book. Having now published Dodecker and half written it before layout and half written it alongside layout, I think it's really useful to think about that if you're considering producing it as a product. So I have had a little mess about on my lunch and kind of done a very simple, this is just so I can have a playtest document, to be honest, and have Wojciech, thank you very much for the artwork here. This is actually Kargan Demon Claw's character Dow, who is a fighter in Pathfinder 2, our Gaming with the Garblag campaign. But I just wanted some fighter artwork in there, and I think it's cool. So he's got a sword, he's got a crossbow, he's got chainmail, he's got long boots. He looks like a decent fighter, and he's wicked with that crossbow in the game, so that's cool. And they always have a little bit of artwork next to the text. I wanted it to be a bit like that. So we can see here. Let me get this up for me as well. Hit dice, hit points at first level, hit points gained. Oh, and you'll see in here I've put hit points at first level 10 plus ancestry bonus plus constitution modifier. One thing I liked about Pathfinder 2, although there's lots of hit points, I think a bonus from your ancestry to have a little difference there. Dwarves gain a few more hit points than elves. Elves might get 2 bonus hit points, whereas a dwarf might get 6 bonus hit points. That kind of thing, just to kind of have a difference between them and balance some of their abilities through that. And I'm not about balancing everything, but I want it to be largely balanced. I do want some people to be slightly better at some things and not bad at other things, but not always. Then our proficiencies in there. Novice in athletics, pick one from craft, engineering, influence, perception, take a breath, warrior bearing feats, saving throws, and then what I've started to do is like a little look at what these things could look like in a print format. First stab, but I do kind of think a bit like that, and as you can see, I've changed. I had the advance called Mighty Blow and the feat called Mighty Blow, and that's just bad. Shouldn't do that. The advance should be a bit more descriptive, and then the feat should be the output. So just in my head, I think. So I do need to, this is weird, back compatibility, just change that to, I'm not sure how loud my keyboard is. That's probably a good test for you guys. You can hear it, I think, but not too bad. So here's a good example. These are kind of, so it says at the top, you can see it says first level fighter completes 3 advances, progresses to second level, and the idea is that you then go to second level, the first level ones go away, and your second level advances now are open to you, much like in D&D, Pathfinder as well. You can pick some feats, you can move on. In Pathfinder you can buy your old feats, but often the new ones are better, so you're kind of like, would I go back? And they often kind of branch in a kind of semi-tree. Some of them, they kind of link, or they're compatible. So what I want to do here is you complete all these advances and you move on to the second level advances. Some of them might be the same, and then you might go, well, if it's a hit die one, yeah, I'm going to do that one again. It might be slightly different, or I might be able to get Meat Shield later on if I didn't get it here. That kind of thing, just to explore that a little bit. And again, this is probably where a lot of the playtesting and design needs to go in, creating all of these individual abilities and making sure they work, they're achievable, I think achieve an advance I didn't really want. As loud as music. Okay, cool. Well, this is the thing. So, I think we'll have it so the advance is optional. So you can say, oh, you've fulfilled that one. Do you want to complete it? And you can say, no, it's okay. I'm not really interested in the mighty blow. I'm not sure. I like a certain causality in it, though. If you go around criticaling everyone, you figure out how to whack people hard, kind of thing. But I think player choice will probably be more important. So it'll probably be a case that if you complete one that you don't want to fulfill, you don't have to fulfill it. It will probably just take you a little bit longer to get to some of the ones you wanted. But you can see I'm already trying to balance things. So, like the basic forms, you defeat 10 excuse me. Oh, wine will help. Defeat 10 combatants, but a hit die has survived 5 battles. Now, 5 battles will have more than 10 combatants, probably. Your fighter won't kill all of them, so it'd be interesting to see which one of those would come first. And roll 5 critical hits on opponents in melee combat. That might have to be pared down, because, rolling 5 critical hits is difficult. 1 in 20. Defeat 10 combatants in melee combat while wearing armor. Now, if and I need to work on the taking advances section, but if the advances have the same goal, defeat 10 combatants, you can't tick 2 boxes. But if you defeat a combatant in a battle and then survive that battle, you can tick both of those boxes. So I just need to think about whether there's a keyword or a statement at the beginning for how to take advances that covers that. One or the other, I'm not sure yet. Keyword gets a bit gamified. Statement at the beginning is cool but could be missed. So it's kind of like, weigh it up. Maybe you guys have an opinion on that. Meat shield, I just like the idea of having an advance called meat shield. Like you take the most damage in the party in 5 battles, and then good eye. If you want to be a ranged warrior, you can gain the targeteer feat. Now I've got the feats in a minute, but one of the things I want to talk about here was trying to encourage certain behavior through these rewards. So take the most damage in the party in 5 battles. That means your warrior, you're trying to get your fighter out there to block the attacks on others, to get in the melee, so that you, in your better armor and your higher hit points, and I know that's what most fighters are likely to do, but it's rewarding that behavior with the bonus, the boost that is fitting. So it's about that, and what I actually want to do, cannon fodder implies that you die, right? Meat shield is a bit more like you might still be alive. So yeah, cannon fodder felt a bit hard. I did consider cannon fodder, but that felt a bit harsh. I mean, there are gunpowder weapons, so who knows? One thing I want to do with this is classes will have feat related advances and proficiency in certain weapon groups and armor, but they won't only the thief related ones will get skill ones. Skills themselves will have advances that you can do to upgrade your proficiency in them. So things like nature, which covers survival, one of them will be something like successfully camp overnight for 10 nights to get to a novice level in nature. So you're out there, and I don't want it to be like, obviously some of these things in the real world would take a lot longer for you to learn some of these things, but the idea is that you're an adventurer and you're out trying to absorb stuff about your surroundings and learn about surviving and fighting things in this world and questing and adventuring. So you are actively engaged in your environment. So if you go out in the evening and you're camping, you're not just like checking your phone on 4G. You're like noticing the trees, you're hearing for enemies, you know, you're thinking about what rations you have and how long you can keep them going, and all that kind of stuff. So it's I think I need to just work on the narrative elements. You can see I've got like the rules and things, but I think each of these bits where it says basic forms fighter advance 1, I think I should have a little bit of italicized text in there which says you spend nights practicing your form, combat is the only way to truly test your mettle, you know, that kind of thing, to kind of give a feel of like, this is the, I like to grill my meat shields. Cannon fodder is trash, a meat shield is tasty. That is true. That is true. It's very tasty. So then go on to the feats. So these are some of the feats that a level 1 fighter can learn before getting to 2nd level. And I'm still toying with some of these. But some of them will be boosts. Some of them will allow you to spend your hit dice in other ways. So Mighty Blow, you exert yourself to do more damage. It's a reaction. Spend a hit die after making a successful melee attack, but before rolling damage. It's instantaneous. Roll 1d6 and add the score to your damage for the attack. So you're literally like pulling your reserves. You're like, I'm gonna kill you, and you're like, right, spending that hit die, get an extra d6. And you, one thing I didn't want to do was make it like before you roll, spend a hit die. If you miss, haha, you know, I want it to be like, right, you've made an attack. You're really getting into it. You see you're going to hit and you like really lean into it. That kind of thing. A bit more player character positive. The DM should always be on the side of the players. You know, that kind of thing. Target here. You aim at a target in range. Gain a +2 to attack and damage rolls if your next action is a range attack at the target. Simple, effective. You can use an action to aim. That's pretty nifty, and I can see someone just doing that all the time. Normal aim will be a +1 to attack and damage rolls. So this will be a better version of aim, effectively, because you're so practiced and you've got your good eye. Broad shoulders, wearing armor no longer reduces your speed. And that's pretty standard, kind of like medium armor is going to give you a 5 foot 1 square reduction, and heavy armor will give you up to a 10 foot 2 square reduction. And I didn't want it to be like reduce it by 5 feet and then later on there's another one necessarily, because it feels like you're picking up something that you've already got. I don't know, but it could have that, like when you reach level 6, this upgrades, starts to get complicated. Again, I think that's something to think about from play testing. We won't necessarily get that from doing 3 levels of play testing, but I think that's enough to like give it a go. You know, you only need level 1 really, but it'd be good to have level 2 and 3 just for me to think about it, and if you accidentally do really well and get through a lot of stuff, then you might level up. Defender, this is where it starts to get slightly more complicated. Reaction when someone in your party is about to be attacked in combat. Take a free step, which is a 5 foot move, 1 square move. If step gets you adjacent to the attacker for melee or blocking line of sight for range, the attack targets you instead of the original party member. For that attack, add your charisma modifier to your armor class. So you're literally trying to draw their attention, annoy them sufficiently, and draw the attack onto you. So you're like, no, don't hit the wizard. Ha ha, you coward, how dare you? And then they turn around and hit you, that kind of thing. So again, trying to encourage, hit me, my armor is magnificent. Yes, absolutely. But encouraging that behavior, trying to, like, the fighter should be looking out for the others. And often they are, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everyone who plays a fighter is just running off killing things and not worrying about the party behind them. But the party is going to be a bit of a concept in this, and I'm toying around with having party-based abilities, progression, some, you know, like like in some games now you can get like a party sheet, like in, I mean, they had it in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd edition and a few other things, but like you know, if we all do these things, then we get this bonus. Or, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it because I like the idea of we're a party, and you can write the name of your party at the top. And you know, if you have these characters, then when you do this, this happens. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. That's down the line. That can be an add-on or something. So that is the first level stuff. Then I got into Cleric, and I was like, right, I can do the writing later, but I want to do some of the stuff. So weapons, novice and simple weapons, and your faith weapon. I wanted to call it something different. Having a faith weapon sounds a bit weird from my perspective. You know, like, haha, we all have like a big pole arm when we go to church. It's like, you know, but I know it's only like certain section of that organized religion who go into battle will have that kind of thing. So maybe it's all right. What do you do? What does a cleric do? Stuff. I do stuff. That's what I love clerics because they're kind of all rounders, and I'm trying to reflect that a bit. They've got pretty good capabilities. Divinity weapon. That makes it sound like it's magic though. I might just have it like tradition weapon, or I don't know. Faith weapon will do for now. We can worry about minutiae later on. And then I started to get into, again, slightly laying the format out differently. So said that the cleric begins with a blessing and magic of the gods feats. So blessing is like each god will have a different blessing that they confer based on their domain and their specialty. So it can be competence, protection, resilience, or valor. And competence is skill checks, protection is armor class, resilience is saving throws, and valor is combat. Protection might have to go up to +2 to armor class because it feels slightly underbalanced, but armor class bonuses are pretty good, so we'll see. But that is spend a hit die, choose one willing person within 30 feet 6 squares to receive the blessing of your faith. And obviously on the gods and powers table it will have blessing, and you'll have like competence, resilience, whatever it is, and then there are all the effects of the blessing. So you can do a blessing on someone as an action, a 1-point action, just a simple give them aid, and then for 10 rounds, 1 minute, 10 rounds, they have that boon. And then magic of the gods. I wanted to do something a little bit different with magic actually. I wanted the gods, the cleric power to be like you are calling down the power from your god, and as you do it more and more and more and more, they might finally be like, alright, stop, like shut up, leave me alone, I've had enough, you're abusing your power, your connection, like the hang up, you know, kind of thing. Yeah, sacred weapon. Here we go. I like that. I'll add that in. So what I've done with Cleric Magic is you're able to cast Divine Magic, select 3 spells from the first circle of Cleric spells. I'm calling them circles, just for fun. Because you've got level of characters, and you've got, and I saw some commentary on Twitter recently saying, why is everything called level? You know, you've got levels of spells, level of characters, level of this, level of that. Why don't they change them up? And I actually like the idea of circles. And Arlorn and all the realms are kind of circular, and anyway, it just kind of felt like, that's a slightly cool little change. I know everyone playing it will go first level spell, but it's the first circle of cleric spells. You're able to use these spells with the cast spell action, which will be detailed elsewhere. Your god has deemed you worthy to cast a number of spells equal to your level without divine supervision. So basically, first level cleric can cast a spell, and the god's not going to get annoyed. He's like, yeah, you can have that much power. 10th level cleric can cast 10 spells and not piss off his god. So the 7th circle. Exactly. I'm not going to have as many circles, but it's going to be like the first circle and the 5th circle, and you'll be like, ooh, wow, awesome. So once your first level cleric casts a spell, their god's like, yeah, I feel that, but that's whatever. He's just doing what I've told him to do. Cast another one. He's like, oh, what was that for? Beyond that, every time you cast a spell, you must roll to see if you have called upon your god too frequently today, causing them to hold back power until you have taken a long rest and prayed to them. So roll 1d20 plus your level. DC is equal to 12 plus the total of the circles of spells you have cast today. For example, you cast 2 first circle spells and 1 second circle spell. Your DC is 12 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2, which is 16. So you then have to make a roll, adding your level, to beat 16 or more to be able to continue casting a spell. So you can push it if you're a cleric, and you can, piss your god off a bit further down the line. And I may have it. I'm tempted to have some kind of backlash, but I think the backlash of not being able to cast any more spells, or you being caught out, like, oh, okay, fair enough, were there circles of hell? Yes, there were circles of hell. So why aren't there circles of heaven? Symmetry. The magic users will spend hit dice to cast spells, and then beyond that, they will burn shit in the world around them, whether that's ice, or materials, or blood, or what was the other one? The spell sword. I think we'll have to. The spell sword will be massively limited in magic, because they are fighting and spelling. Sword. 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 They are doing both of those things, so that's going to be pretty advantageous, and they'll have armor. So it may just be that they can use their hit dice to cast spells, and then that's it. But there will be abilities that allow you to recover hit dice. A short rest will allow you to recover one hit die, and then at a long rest you recover up to half your. I might just do all your hit dice, because otherwise it feels a bit. To other members of clergy as revenge. Absolutely, no, Berserker. So I want the magic to be different. The way you get it and the way you use it to be different, so that clerics are going, ha ha ha, yeah, but cleric spells are not as powerful, or they're supportive and healing, that kind of stuff. Whereas the magic users are chucking fireballs, magic missiles, all the good stuff, and the ice seekers and the blood casters and the rune wielders, that's it, rune crafter, sorry. I may change it to rune wielder. I quite like rune wielder. We'll be able to destroy their runes. And I'm going to have kind of scrolls or stored spells in some way. So if you have a day when you're not doing anything and you're a magic user, you can cast a spell and store it and then use it later, fairly early on. Not super early on. I think level 2 magic user will be able to make a scroll, and a level 2 rune crafter will be able to craft a rune, and a level 2 blood caster will be able to tattoo their body, and a level 2 ice seeker will I don't know yet, but will have a similar capability, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I want it to go. So the magic users have to figure out ways, arcane secrets to unlock more magic, whereas priests get it from their god until they piss their god off and go, oh, I'm sorry, and they're like, you so the goal is to have very different kind of feeling magic. Hopefully that works. We will find out. Before I read those other feats, we've got other advances. We've got the hero in training. Less athletics successes required from a cleric because their hit die is lower. They get fewer hit points. Bless you, my child. Use blessing 8 times on other members of the party. Behavior from reward. Gain the prayer feat. The prayer feat allows you to do blessing as a 3-point action, and do it over an area. So give your blessing to multiple people. That kind of thing. So you can see where I'm going with this. You kind of reward a certain behavior or a character does a certain thing multiple times, they learn from that experience and they get better at something, and then you get a certain number of advances and up you go to the next level. Like Revelation, cast 8 spells, gain a first circle cleric spell. So you gain another spell there. And then go down to, I already got a cleric advance 2. Defeat 10 combatants in melee combat while using your faith weapon. Secret weapon. And then you can upgrade your proficiency in your sacred weapon. So you would move to expert as part of being second level. So then your proficiency would go up, and that's how you get better at fighting. There's no THAC0, there's no base attack bonus. It's like 5th edition. Your proficiency bonus is your combat skill. Call it your own game and publish it. I'm going to. It's going to be my own game. It's going to be my own version of Dungeons & Dragons, effectively. And I'm probably going to try and publish it. I might ask for some people to help me, but we'll see. And then I've got some spells, some familiar spells. I'm actually going back to some of this old chestnut, and I'm going to have fewer spells because there will be abilities like Blessing, which, if you hadn't noticed, is a bit like the Bless spell, but slightly multifaceted, depending on your god. Oh, Naranizeka, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. We will have conversations on the Discord. Yeah, sorry. So Blessing and things like that will turn up. So Turn Undead, Blessing. Some spell powers will actually be almost like cantrips. So there'll be abilities that you can use, and a bit like the 4th edition version, where you have these at-will powers that you can use. I think I'll try and slightly less gamify some of the language. So I'm kind of trying to keep these fairly simple, but they are discrete boxes, so you know that this is what that does. So I've got all my attention on this. Right, it's action 2 for detect poison and disease. To your eyes, poisonous creatures, venoms, and diseases within 60 feet / 10 squares glow with a soft light. That's not 10 squares, is it? That's 12 squares. Look at that. Silly me. There you go. You wouldn't think I've got a maths A level. Glow with a soft light. You can see this light even if you cannot see the source of the light. So you might be standing in a room, cast detect poison and disease, and you could tell in the next room there are 3 diseased things and they're moving around the room. Oh, sugar. Let's get the weapons out and get ready to go. And then basically your awareness of it gives like an aura to those around you to gain a resistance to it. So, we've got command, we've got cure light wounds, all those kinds of things. Your standard kind of tropes that aren't copyrighted. So any spells that have a character's name in them, like Mordenkainen's blah blah blah, Otterluke's blah blah blah, Tensor's blah blah blah, those you have to completely reskin, or you can't use those names, basically. And that's the kind of IP that D&D has. Now, what I was going to do tonight, and I've been talking for quite a while, so thank you everyone for staying with me as it is. But I wanted to do a little bit, because what I've realised is I've started doing the classes, but I don't have Ancestries. Page break. So, World Mountain Ancestries. So, what I wanted to do was think about the hit points, the skill. Get to choose a skill to upgrade proficiency in, and the ability score to get a boost in for each of these. So I'm going to add in a little. Here we go. Where are we? Insert table. it's done that, because for some reason I still have columns on. Okay. I do like Google Docs, but I'm so used to like Word that I get a little. I know it's only just different, but it just sometimes sometimes I'm stupid. Let's put it that way. Let's do that. There we go. So we've got ancestry. We've got ability, score. We've got skill, and then I'm going to leave some space for some other stuff. Now, in my world, I've got a whole bunch of ancestries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 at the moment. So I had dwarf, elf, gnome, goblin, human, hobgoblin, kobold, lizard folk. Although I hate names with folk on the end, it just sounds like such a cop-out. Like they wouldn't have a name for themselves. So I need to have a think about that. Orc, Jotun, then I've got like Dryad or Branch folk, I'm not sure what to call them yet. Minotaur and Hawk folk. So there's quite a few there. There are some that we have in the Pathfinder 2 game that I wouldn't necessarily have as a full playable race. There'd be more magical creatures than sentient or sapient characters like the Kitsune and things like that. They would be more fey creatures that are of Glorim and really tied to Glorim, so they live there and stay there, rather than creatures that came from the creation of Ondrum, the creation of sentient creatures, and the kind of absorption of different elements from the different layers. So for example, elves are from, like, the dwarves are like the kind of base ancestry, and elves are creatures that came about when Glorim was formed, and a kind of essence of life came from the dwarven people. So they're not dwarves of Glorim, but they are literally this kind of life force, and the Fae came together to create the elves. Gnomes, however, are dwarves that over millennia became Fae, half Fae as it were, through proximity and eating the food from that land and living there and all that kind of stuff, and they became the gnomes. There's going to be a whole, the Jotuns come from Yaneth, the kobolds come from Zadumir, the hobgoblins come from Udril. There's various layers of the World Mountain. I've talked about them before in other videos, and I'm sure you should better find some stuff out about that. So I probably need a few more of these, don't I? Insert 6 rows below. So let's have a look. Dwarf, elf. Oh, and I don't have halflings or half elves, because elves and humans are different species and they can't interbreed. And I think half elves and halflings or hobbits are a very Tolkien creation. They're specific, I feel, generally quite specific to the Tolkien world. Hobbits were created to be like English countryside folk, and half elf was like that whole thing about elves and humans, and yeah. Anyway, it's kind of, elves are quite different in my world. They're not the sort of aloof, superior beings who are like the best formation of life. Elves in my world are wild, chaotic, forest-dwelling folk, who enjoy singing in the trees and that kind of stuff, like Ewoks. So, reptids. Okay, interesting. Right, so we've got gnome, we've got goblin. Also, the goblinoids, the goblins, hobgoblins, and orcs are playable ancestries as well, because they are coming out into Arlorn. They've been under the tyranny of horrible leaders, and some of them have broken out. And really the concept is that the evil gods are kind of the sources of disease and monsters and death and all the horrible things in the world, but they're not the source of any ancestry in the world necessarily. And that any ancestry has the capability for good, but there are evil societies. So Braktagar, which if you're watching Roads and Ruins, or you saw Tears of the Dreamer, which is an older PF2 show that we did, Braktagar is a fascist military society. I mean, lots of medieval ones were, and it's kind of on it's on a mission to take over Arlorn. Its mission has been stalled for 30 years by the death of their charismatic super leader and a chain of crappy, not so powerful leaders who have let their edges kind of fray, and people have escaped from the yoke of Braktagar. And now there are kind of goblins and orcs and hobgoblins mixing in the cities, and people are like, whoa, okay, cool. So it's one of those kind of situations. In the many editions of D&D, which also I'm running in the World Mountain setting, it's my current big fantasy setting, so I kind of use it, because I feel like I don't need to prep for a lot of it because I can tap into certain things. They came across some hobgoblins from under Braktagar, which is another thing. Well, not altogether, but another thing. And one of them was actually a spy for like the good guy hobgoblins who are trying to break out from under the control of like the dictators, have a slightly more free society. Still hobgoblins, but he's not evil. They're not all evil, and he's like, don't kill me, I want to help you. These guys are bad guys, more of them are coming, they're looking for something in here. They found him in this dungeon, they killed his buddies, not buddies, but and he'd infiltrated them and was hiding out, trying to figure out what they were doing. So it kind of, I also want to do it because it brings up those interesting ethical questions, those quandaries, gets people to think about things slightly differently. I do want there to be big, evil, bad things. Thuthrox, the demon-possessed red dragon overlord of Zadumir, has devils and demons and, other dragons under its control, and is assaulting the Mechanolith on the layer Zadumir at the bottom of the World Mountain, where the dwarves stand guard forever against these forces, with Nalana, the goddess of protection, backing them up. All these things are going on, so there are big, bad, evil things, but sentient creatures aren't one way or another. Anyone could be an asshole, anyone could be a good guy. Any of them, And in fact, orcs are really good sailors, it turns out. They have a real head for balance, and the strong stomach, and an inquisitive nature, and they have become kind of a big part of the population of kind of sailors and traders in some of the bays of Arlorn. So there's a whole mixture going on. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'll put in lizard folk at the moment, an orc. Now the other one I was messing about with was a mechanoid, because we talked about this thing of these lost empires and these, back in the day the dwarven empires were so much better than they are now. I mean, we've still got them. I don't want it to be like Tolkien, where it's like, now is the time of men and everyone else is either sodding off or shit. This is like, everyone's got some stuff. The dwarves are still the dwarves. We built this fucking world at the behest of Ondrum. Don't you forget it. And they still have big fortresses, but they kind of stick to themselves a bit. They do trade, but they don't like invite loads of people in. They are becoming more cosmopolitan, especially their domars, which are their surface dwellings. But they're still there, but some of their citadels and fortresses and locations have fallen into disarray or broken into kind of infighting, that kind of thing. Just that happens over time with societies. That something gets so big that it starts to crumble from the inside, like Roman Empire. Or, as what's trying to happen is Odril, which is the Underdark, which is the layer below Arlorn, they're trying to get up, and sometimes they break through into the deep places of the world, and a Dwarven Doomir becomes a Doomeraz. It has been compromised and taken over by the forces of Metalin, or Valtei, or Jean, or someone. It's kind of bad gods trying to reach up, and they covet that which the folk above have. Now these ones are out of alphabetical order, which is really annoying me suddenly. But they were kind of like I listed down all the Pathfinder ones, and then I went, oh, I want some new ones. We did a world building stream with Worlds Without Number, Soul Mech. Ooh. I quite like that, because on the Mechanolith down in Zadumir, when dwarves die, they get like a last duty where basically their soul is taken out and put inside a mechanoid. And these are big battle mechanoids on the ramparts of Zadumir, and often have like things like catapults on them and cannons and things to continue the fight. But it only lasts for so long. So I'm gonna pop that in there, and under lizardfolk I'm gonna put reptids. Interesting. It sounds a bit scientific. Do you know what I mean? Branch folk or dryad I'm not sure either. Sorry, and I was saying we did a world building session in Worlds Without Number, which was and Leon will remember this one. There was an island that we rolled up that had minotaurs and gnomes on it. The gnomes had fallen, a stalactite had fallen down from Glorium above and created an island, and some of the gnomes who lived in it were hanging around, and minotaurs had settled on there. I need to think about where minotaurs come from, but I do remember as a, I don't know, I think 11-year-old back at school with my friends, having the AD&D 2nd edition Monster Compendium Lever Arch file, if you remember that. And in there they had high ogres, Idra or something, and minotaurs, because of dragonlance. Excuse me, just need to cough for a moment again. And I remember my two friends, Alex and David, one played a minotaur, one played a high ogre, and I just chucked all the magic items at them, and it was like one of those there you go, one of those crazy game-busting Monty Hall kind of games where you're 12 years old, it's all a load of fun, and you're like, here, yeah, you're a minotaur, you can use 2 + 3 battle axes, go for it, and you're just like, bleh. And then like 6 weeks into it, you're like, yeah, I think we've got to start again. This is crazy. So one thing to point out is that I will be giving specific ability score modifiers to Ancestries, but they will also get a free one, which they can put in anything they want. So I've got Dwarves will get a bonus to Constitution and another one. So when you see this with one ability score in, think they also get another one. So there is that freedom for you to go, yeah, but I'm a smart dwarf, or I'm a quick dwarf, or I'm a friendly dwarf. There's not going to be a penalty, no negative to anyone. Oh, I forgot, we're going to put hit points in here. Hit points will kind of reflect some of that. And then what I will do is develop abilities, not advances, ancestry abilities that you can develop. So, for example, a dwarf, if he goes exploring in dungeons, because dwarves have that sense, they will be able to roll better at orientation. So having a dwarf dungeoneer character, they'll get multiple benefits to their dungeoneering skills, so they'll be like super duper dungeoneers. So we've got this is what I had down, so I was going to write all these in and then see what people thought. Was. Why am I doing that? I keep missing that letter. I hadn't actually written that one down yet. That's a good point. Maybe a mechanoid has 2 free ones. Who knows? We will know. And Hawkfolk. This is the tricky one. I thought I was going to have wisdom for them because I thought they'd be quite perceptive, you know, like awareness and eyesight and stuff like that. So I've got Dwarves getting Constitution and another one. Elf, Dexterity, Gnome, Intelligence. Fairly standard. Goblin, Dexterity, Human, Charisma, because I want them as like kind of the more social trader. They're quite inquisitive. They go around talking to lots of people, forming nations a bit more than, say, elves who are chaotic more than lawful. That kind of thing. Hobgoblin, Intelligence. I want them to be kind of very clever, and they're quite strategic. Kobold I had as wisdom, again as more of an awareness thing, and also I didn't just want like it to be the same as Goblin, as it were. Just put Dex on and you go, hey, it's a small nippy thing. Oh, why am I playing a Kobold rather than a Goblin? I thought Goblins feel a bit crazy and they're a bit like uncontrolled and like, you know, running around, whereas Kobolds always feel a bit more like tracker things. I'm thinking probably more like the dog version from a long time ago than the more modern dragon version. But I think there will be dragon versions to be current and in with the modern thinking of kobolds. And then I stumbled into this problem of like lizard folk. Then I think also would be wisdom, because we've got 2 lizard-like races that are wisdom. Talk human as a second language, or that feels like the language of trade. Actually, Dwarven is the common language, because they built the world, they built all the big things, they taught people how to write stuff down. And it may be that now the human won't necessarily be a language. They will have there will be, I'm thinking more nations will have languages. So there will be like Elven, because they live separately up on Glorim, and they have their courts and they have their forest realms and all that kind of stuff, where there's just elves. So Elven is a language. Dwarf is a language because they came first and they built everything. But there's no int for kobolds. Clever little buggers. Yeah, that's not a bad shout actually. That is not a bad shout. I'm liking your thinking. Let's whack that in there, non-anomaly. Thank you for that. Just do a little trade with my wife. I will undo the hot water bottle, and she will fill up my wine glass. Yeah, okay. No, I like that. You know, and also, yeah. I think that's cool. That is good. So, what I'm going to do is just make that ability. I get a bit funny about things sometimes. So then I think what we should do is hit points. Now I don't want it to be like sorry, loud noise there. I don't want it to be like Pathfinder, where your ancestry gives you as many hit points as, yeah, I like it, Calnan. That's a good shout. I like it. I don't want your ancestry to give you as many hit points as your class, because I like the idea of both of them adding together, and I like the idea that some ancestries get more hit points than others. You know, a Jotun just has more meat to them than a goblin, but we have to remember that hit points aren't always your body, your meat. It's your ability to like shrug it off or get out of the way, or, you know, we don't describe it narratively in the way that hit points really should. You know, I had thought about having hit points and life points, and subdividing, but then it starts to get complicated. I'd even thought about taking armor class and going, right, you have target class, which is how easy you are to hit, and armor class, which is like damage reduction. But again, I thought it always bummed me that you have armor class and damage reduction. Just like, can't we name them things that sound like they pair together? I don't, But these are all crazy thoughts that pop into my head and pop out, and I'm kind of like, let's go with hit points and armor class. We know that in D&D, that's kind of like the basics. We need to have that. It's like saving throws. There are going to be saving throws, but what are they going to be? That kind of thing. So I'm thinking that, and I had down like 4, 6, 8, but I'm thinking like 2, 3, or 4 hit points might be just enough, to make a difference between the Ancestries. So we have 2 for the softer ones, one like fatigue, and once they go to 0, you start taking real damage, critical hits like alien. Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of so obviously there's a bit of a delay on the chat. So Kargan, are hit points more like fatigue, and once they go to 0, you start taking real damage or critical hits like alien. I mean, that's a good shout, but I think that's like taking it a step away from what someone would see as Dungeons and Dragons kind of. I know I'm breaking lots of rules and I'm changing up the format, but you are going through experiences to complete levels. I think if I change some of those bits, people might be a bit like, oh, I don't know, this isn't like Dungeons and Dragons. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not. Who knows? I mean, in effect, if you go in 5th edition, if you go down to 0 hit points, you then start taking death saves. So you are kind of taking wounds at the end. So that might be, that might be the kind of thing. And maybe I change poison save to death save, because a poison is trying to kill you. And then we can have, because it used to be death ray and poisons or something. Hit points what you spend to turn a hit into a scratch, then when you go to 0 you take a critical. Yeah, it's a mixture, and it's kind of abstracted, isn't it? So I think what we're going to have is we're going to have now I'm going to fill this in with what I've got on this sheet, and then you guys tell me if this looks stupid or sensible. I don't have mechanoid yet. I need to think about that one. Bear with me a moment, everybody. Hello there. Sorry about that. That's true about Conan. That's true about poisons. They could be paralyzed or sleep. That is true. I might just have it cover that area though, because it's still like a physical resistance. And I just don't like the word fortitude for some reason. I don't know why. When around 5-year household, gaining a level of exhaustion when you went to 0 hit points added a bit of punishment to dying without breaking the rules much. I need to have a think about exhaustion. Let's have a look. What else comments have we got? You might want to look into stun, wound, mortal for hit point replacement. I'm not going to replace hit point. I think that's kind of the conversation. I'm not replacing hit points. I had thoughts about it, and various ones popped in and out of my head, but I think that's too far and away from what Dungeons and Dragons is. You start. There are some fundamentals that I think, you should keep. Or if you're going to change some fundamentals, don't change all of them, because then you're kind of walking into a different game. Hit points and armor class, that's D&D. We're going to have hit points and armor class. As much as I'd like to have hit points, life points, target class, armor class, I think people would be like, oh, that's too many numbers to think about, and armor class now means damage reduction rather than how hard you are to hit. And it's like, well, that's what it should be. It's kind of like your armor's reducing your damage, whereas your probably easier to hit because you're wearing armor, you know. But does it get through? You know, that kind of thing. People don't want that. You know, that it starts to get too nitty gritty. It's not Rollmaster, you know. Anyway, I know that Rollmaster's fun. Don't worry. It's a different kind of game though. So for that kind of experience, you go to something else. You know, for kind of, oh, I'm going for like a semi-heroic, semi-gritty fantasy adventure. That's what I'm going for. Not the heroic stuff of 4th edition where it's like, da 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 da, first level, I've got 30 hit points and I'm chucking out all this stuff and I'm doing all this. I'm like, I want a few little bits. I want more than none, you know, because I find that a bit boring for some of the classes. But I don't want to go all the way to, I've got like 3 books. I'm looking through this and where are all my powers, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, let's add a certain level of complexity that make it interesting, not overwhelming. I think that's what I'm trying to do. Right, so then, does anyone disagree with any of those hit point bonuses? No? Because I'm going to have to think about mechanoids. I think I'm going to have it like 3. And I think I'm going to have them at 3. Just because Hawk have lighter bones, so lower hit points. Yeah, that's not a bad shout, Calnan. Yeah, they probably will have lighter bone. They're not going to be like full on, you know, there's going to be a little bit of magic to their existence. But as with all these things, because basically they're going to live in the stalactites. There'll be some of them on the ground level, but a lot of them will live in the stalactite area because it's there. And it was a disadvantage picking a high hit point raise. This is a good question, Kargan, and I don't think necessarily all of it will be completely balanced out. Some of it will be about the story of those creatures. They won't have the ability bonus you want, the skill bonus they want. They won't have the... There's going to be ancestry abilities as well. So it may be that those with lower hit points have an additional ability that they can get if they put the... You know, if they do the required goals, they will unlock that ability as part of their ancestry. So I think I'll balance it that way. But it's good shout. I mean, ultimately, see what I'm thinking here is 2 hit points going to make a big difference when you're 5th level? You know, and I will state I'm only looking to have hit dice increase up to 6th level, and then beyond that you'll just get a few hit points per level. I don't want it to go to like I've got 200 hit points and all that kind of stuff, because I think that gets a bit crazy. Right, excuse me. So, is that worth doing, or should it be slightly more so that there's a bigger range and therefore a bigger difference? So should it be 2, 4, 6, and dwarves get 6 hit points whereas elves get 2 hit points? Is that too big a difference? This is the kind of thing I'm like, I think balance will, you know, do I over tip it so that we then do a playtest and go, that's too much? Or do you go too low and then you go do a playtest and go, yeah, you have to get to 5th level. At lower levels, 2 hit point could be a 50% increase. What do you mean you have to get to 5th level? You have to get 5th level to get your hit point bonus. It feels like a long time to wait for, you know, cool. I think what I thought it would be good to have the hit point bonus at the beginning is differentiates the ancestry slightly, and it gives you a little bit of survivability at the beginning, because let's face facts, we're not in the world of, I mean, we can do, if you want to play that game, and I do want the game to appeal to those people, you can pick it up, play a game, kick the door in, fight the monster. You have to survive to get that high. I mean, you're right. At lower level, so a dwarf magic user will have 8 hit points and constitution modifier, whereas an elf magic user will have 6 hit points. That's still not a lot. I mean, 8 hit points, you can still get killed by a hobgoblin, sword, or a you know, some nasty creature just biting you. I think I'll leave it where it is, and we will test it and see and see what happens. See what happens. Now, does everybody remember the skill list? Oh, let's roll back up to the skill list. So, these are the skills here. Yep, so there's 10. 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, 10 skills. And they each have specialties within. Now, you won't have to buy these specialties, but they will be like different actions. It's based in hit points and don't want to be too high proportion bonus. Counting that's true. So a dwarf fighter would have 14 hit points and their constitution modifier. Or is the constitution bonus for the dwarf the thing? Yeah, I don't know. Because constitution adds to other things. Constitution will add. It's tricky. It's tricky. Well, you're right. I'll leave it there. But I think we'll find out whether or not that's breaking or pointless. If it's one or the other of those things, then you might as well get rid of it. You know, I don't want to. Yeah. Okay. So, Arcana, Athletics, Craft, Dungeoneering, Influence. Is this game really focused on low-level characters? Styles. Level 7 to 10 characters. You know what, actually, Kargan? I want it to actually be fun 1 to 10. It's hard. I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I haven't, done that yet. But I want it to be. There's stuff that interests you at lower level and higher level for your character. And it's not like, oh, I'm a fighter, I have to get to 9th level to get a fort, and then I can have my henchmen, and then my character becomes interesting because I've been through the wars and I now can lead an army. I want it to be like there's going to be a fighter, or maybe a paladin one, which is like get a bard to write a song about your adventures, and then you attract some henchmen, kind of thing. Stuff like that. We'll see how it goes. It's a good question, though. It is a good question. Is it focused on low-level characters? Or are you aiming this at level 7 to 10? A lot of people say 5th edition, just start at 3rd level, because level 1 and 2 are pointless. And once you've played it a few times, you're just waiting to get to your subclass and a few points, and then you're then the character's interesting. And it's kind of like, why design a game where the first 2 levels are pointless? But not that they are. They're kind of like, I don't know, for beginner players or something. If you never played D&D before, start at 1st level. If you have, start at 3rd level because it's fun. I don't know, but that's a very good question. Something I need to think about. There will be things that they get a high. You have to do certain tasks to get them. But what I don't want to do is tie an ancestry ability to a class level. So the ancestry abilities will be varying difficulty based on the benefit that they give you. And so the easier ones will be you'll complete faster just because they're easier to do. And the harder ones you won't complete till you're a higher level. But I don't want it to be explicitly like 10th level elf ability, because that feels incongruous to me. It's like my level is my class. My ancestry is like things that my people know and learn and share and abilities deep down inside of us. Because, the idea is that these ancestries have, in all the ancestries of the world, there's a magical element to them, and there's like a true nature to them, and they have these abilities that can come out from depending on what layer they were born on and all those kinds of things. So, yeah, Kargan. At level 1 in basic D&D, you could do almost nothing. This character is not much use until levels 4 to 7, and after that party, level 10 characters could destabilize an economy. Yeah, so it's kind of like basic D&D had like a nice bell curve in the middle where it was really good. And in fact, I think a lot of the things I remember about AD&D as well were those 5th to 9th level characters being, capable, competent, but not crazy. Once you get beyond that, the wizards start to get really powerful, and then you're like, well, what can we do about it? So anyway, I started to assign some of these skills as a choice. Yeah, so they get a free skill. Let's roll down here. And so dwarves are fairly now I know it's not necessarily trendy to do it like this, but I feel that it gives a flavour to the world and the ancestries and their past and the things that they've done and where they come from and what they do. So it adds to the narrative and the story building of your world to do some things like that. So, and when there's only 10 skills, giving an option between 2 of them is actually like 1/5 of the skill base. So it's not like narrow pigeonholing people down into like one tiny thing out of a million things in the world. It's like saying there's 2 out of 10 things that they're generally better at because the societies that they've formed have been based around those things. So that's kind of where this is going. It's not athletics or nature for ours because they run around in the woods having Zion-style parties in the trees, and nature because they live in the trees. So gnomes, I had craft or arcana because they're building things and a lot, their research labs and things like that where they are in Neckelvang and other stalactite cities. Goblins, I had Dungeoneering or thievery because they are agile and quick and therefore, and they like to live underground. That's one of the things about goblins. Originating from Udril, which is the Underdark, which is completely subterranean layer. Sits directly under Arlon, so it doesn't get any light from Serikron, the sun. Humans, I had craft or influence because they're trading people, merchants, those kinds of things. They spend a lot of time moving around. They were the plains folk of Arlon when they first arrived, and they moved around following herds and things and talking to each other and finding resources and then places that were good enough to stay in one location, but still they had people traveling between them to share knowledge and trade. Yeah, if you were doing a stint as a pit fighter, you might get lots of skills in individual combat skills, but not much else. So yeah, if you're a character that focuses on the class and you're not worried about the skills so much, you can just ignore all those and be like, your skill advances, whatever, I'm not too worried. I've got Dungeoneering Novice, I've got Athletics Novice, I could jump over a trap, I can climb a wall, I'm fine. But you can, if you want to, go into the skill advances and just progress them by going out and experiencing things related to those skills. You don't have to level up. But if you do level up, your proficiency will get slightly better. Not 10 levels better, but a few points better because you've had world experience. You've gone out and you've obviously done more things. And that is, got my Dune t-shirt. Should have saved it for Thursday really, but maybe I'll stick it in the wash before then. So you can level up proficiency, you can level up, and the two things will benefit you. Hobgoblin, I had influence or law, because I'm very into tactics and history and those kind of things, but they're also quite powerful characters. Kobold, Dungeoneering or perception. Lizard folk, I had nature or perception. Hang on. There we go. Sorry about that. A little bit of a cough. Orc, we had athletics or law, mainly because law encourages like encompasses. Sorry, that's the wine talking. Navigation, geography geography basically, and athletics because they're robust and they do lots of activity. Excuse me, sorry. I think mechanoid might be a free choice. Maybe that these are sentient creatures that spring up from the mechanolith. They're not like forged by dwarves. These are like a kind of melding of the remnants of the soul magic going on down there and the technology that's been built to defend the place. And occasionally these creatures just appear, but they don't always want to stand on a rampart and just fight things. They're suddenly like, I'm alive. I want to go and like, what's going on? Why am I in hell? You know, because Zadimir is literally like hell, fiery everywhere, and giant mountain that you're defending. It's like, Jotun, we had athletics or influence because they're hearty. They like a joke. They're very jovial, but they're big, strong, powerful creatures. Mechageist. Ooh. People coming up with some cool names for like the mechanoids. I like that. You're gonna make me look. This is the kind of thing that I don't like. Why is just that one 2 lines in a in a table? Branchfit Dryad, law or nature. Minotaur we had. Funnily enough, Dungeoneering or athletics. +1 for Mechageist. That's a good. Yeah, I'll have a think about that one. And then we had nature or perception for. If you're a dryad, you can branch out. Hey Sharadel, how you doing? Cool. Yeah. So that was that's like my ancestries. I'm gonna have a think because I don't want it to be. I was lurking for a bit. You lurk away, Sharadel. That's cool. We love lurker. I love a lurker. Sitting in the back, propping up the numbers. Sounds good to me. Yeah, I'm going to have a think if there's more ancestries I actually want to include. There's things like catfolk and gnolls and kitsunes and, you know, there's a whole raft of things. I'm not up for comedy ancestries like what's the one in Leshies in Pathfinder. I like the idea. I wanted branch folk, you know, a plant-based kind of creature, but not a gourd-headed creature. That's not my kind of thing. I try to drop in, even if I'm doing other stuff as DMing tonight. Trying out a new baddie. Oh, a Sharadel. That sounds interesting. You must tell us more in the chat or on the Discord. Karkan. It would. Exterminate Dalek ancestry would focus on conquest and extermination. Sounds good to me. They probably worship Metalin. So that's pretty cool. That's, you know, that's the ancestries that I've made some notes on and wanted to kind of get into my document so that we could start to be like, right, if you pick one of these, you wouldn't start off with any of I think I might have an ability for each one that they start off with, like dark vision, or which not everyone's going to have. It's not going to be a dark vision fest, you know, and only humans are like, where's my torch? That kind of thing. So I probably have an ability, which maybe, look, I've made an additional column. Anyone want to suggest an ability, just the name of an ability for an ancestry? Whack it in. There's all these aliens. How do you stop all these becoming Star Trek aliens? I mean, it's a good question. I mean, they are typical fantasy creatures. Branch folk will not just be a human with a thing on his head. It will be like, I'm literally infused or made of plant, you know. Digging, what kind of ability are you looking for here? So like, you know, and a typical ancestral kind of special ability that dwarves, or something from a game you've seen, like dwarves can find secret doors, or, you know, that kind of, you know, those kinds of things. I've you know, I think the creatures that come from Udril will have dark vision because they live underground. Where's the other one? No, it's those two. They will have dark vision. All the same one. Kargan. Do you have them all the same one? Treasure Seeker. +1 perception for traps, secret doors while underground. Treasure Seeker. Who's that? Dryads didn't have an ability called Family Tree. I quit. Okay. Here we go. Family Tree. We'll figure out what it does later. Yep. They might be... So, that might be that they get a bonus to certain Dungeoneering rolls. You know, that they get a... You know, it's like a little mini feat that gives them a +2 to orientation rolls for Dungeoneering. That kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Minotaur will probably have an inner compass, you're right. So maybe they've got the Dungeoneer, the orientation feat, and the Dwarves have a traps bonus. They do like a maze, don't they? So this is kind of what I'm looking at the moment, you know. I might call it tunnel vision just for fun. And that's kind of, nobody tell them that the original Minotaur was placed in a maze that always led to the middle. Yeah. Yeah. Traps and tricks seem like kobolds to me. Well, I actually thought, because the Dungeoneering specialties are orientation, monsters, and traps, I thought the kobolds might be the ones that know most about horrible monsters, because they've kind of left Zadumir, which is down at the bottom, and they've come up to the higher layers to like get away from all the crazy hell shit going on. And actually they're like, well, no, we're civilized people. We're sentient creatures that aren't just manifestations of an evil god or cooked up by some, you know, something else. We're born from the mountain, you know, but we're just Zadumir representations of the mountain. Let's go and try and figure something out. But they may know more about monsters than others, so yeah. I'll have a think. I'll have a think about that. I think there will be certain skill specialties that will touch on those. So maybe they're hell child or something, hell spawn, but it's kind of in a good way, if that's possible. And then what I'm doing is what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with patrons first, just to get some feedback from them, and then a bit later on, when I've got a bit more sort of together, I'll share like a first version. And what it's going to have in there, I think, is the Ancestries, just their beginning abilities, not their further abilities. I will put, and there's not going to be a lot of them. There's going to be like 2 or 3, depending on how many hit points they get, I think. Just to have, being a dwarf is important to you, and if you do dwarfy things, you get something out of Bloodsingers. So you get excited about hitting things and get Templar to ignore a hit. Ooh, good fight gets the blood singing. I'm going to write down Bloodsinger. It sounds a little bit savage, but I like it. It kind of ties into the Bloodcaster as well. So it kind of has, there is a bit of blood magic in my world. So that's cool. Did I write it in Orcs? Yeah, Bloodsinger, yeah, Orcs, yeah. Cool. The Orcs aren't all savage. That's the thing. They're now a seafaring folk in Arlorn, so they love. Maybe they're pirates. Maybe they are a bit savage. Yeah. Sorry. Back to the thing. Patrons are going to like chuck the fighter out and say, "Hey, have a look at this and tell me what you think." and then a few other bits. But then what I want to do is create a document which is the Ancestries with their basic ability. Nothing more than that. Then more will come. Then Fighter, Cleric, Magic User, Thief with ability to get to 3rd level for each of them. So 2 sets of advances for each of them. Do that. It will have like equipment list, armor, blah blah, you know, some basics, nothing extraordinary, and the rules on like the proficiency stuff, and then a very high level, probably bullet point combat thing. Yeah, and this will be like the playtest document to be like, right, okay, here's Garblags and Gulags, or you know, World Mountain, Ondrum, Dungeons and Dragons, or you know, whatever. Try it out. Let me know what you think, and I'll just like share that with people on the Discord to say, hey, can you guys have a look? You know, it's going to look. It's not going to be over the top fancy or anything. It's going to look a bit like this PDF. You know, very simple, just some black and white with a bit of art in there. If people want to sort of gulags, yep, you like that? I thought them Garblags and Gulags. Then you know, just a bit of artwork in there, just to cheer it up a bit, you know. But if there's no artwork, I'll just leave a thing saying art, you know, for the class, because I want these formats to look the same. So I want to have the fighter with the stuff, then the advances. Feats will all be in a collection together. Yeah. So you better find the feat and write it on your character sheet what it does. You know, the idea would be at one point to get some feedback, work on it a bit more, and then launch, like release, like, oh, here's the Berserker, here's the Commander, here's these things, you know, a living weapon, elf living weapon, a grown still living weapon. What do you mean? Can they, like, they grow something out of them, or they are a living weapon, or more info, please? So yeah, so basically it's going to look a bit like this. It's going to have some Ancestries, high level. In the Ancestries, I'll talk a bit about their place in the World Mountain. You know, if you want to use a World Mountain setting, cool. If you don't, cool. You just want to test the stuff, that's cool. And then yeah, we'll see what people think and see if people like it. You know, see if I can spread it around. You know, do an actual play on the show, play it with the patrons, see what they think about it, and then judge up and down whether or not certain abilities and advances need fewer or more ticks to complete, that kind of thing, and whether, you know, the hit point bonuses on the ancestry are meaningful or not, you know, that kind of thing. So it's going to be cool. So I'm excited about it. I'm doing stuff about it and trying to, you know, try something a bit different. If people like it, and this kind of format of advancing your D&D character, of like, you like literally do, I mean, it's the same thing, right? You know, when you go an adventure, you kill things and they give you experience points, and they total up to make 2,000 experience points. But this way round, you're kind of emphasizing certain behaviors that you think a fighter should have to gain their fighter abilities. And there's skill stuff and there's ancestry stuff that you can learn independent of that if you want to. Something that does that. Grown bows that can, will, heal if damaged, perhaps develop with character. My depression is, oh, $25 Patreon being sold out. Toasty philosopher, don't worry. Yeah, there are a few people I owe some half-hour sessions with, but level up your weapon with you. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, that. Living weapon. I'm going to write that down. That might be branch folk, yeah, rather than elf, because the branch folk could actually like grow out of their body, like or possibilities, it would level up the other one. Possibilities, you could then grow different arrows out of your body. Elf bows were living and could provide magic points if dim memory serves. What's Rune Quest? Well, I want to look into things like consuming objects to take the magic out of their, the form of an object or that kind of thing. With the material components. Material components is going to be a bit more like a wizard can grab stuff and like destroy it to take the energy out of it and turn it into magic. But that means they're just like, pass me that sword. Like, oh, where's my sword gone? Oh, sorry, I used it up to cast a spell. Sorry, that was my material component today. So yeah, we're going to have a document like this going out to patrons to have a look, then on the Discord to have a look. It's not going to be, I'm not paywalling it and that kind of stuff yet. I just want to get some feedback, but I want to give the patrons a first dibs, have a look, see what they think. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. So that's my kind of project. It's kind of I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but I think I'm really enjoying playing in the World Mountain setting, in all the different types of games, and they're kind of like, I quite like the simplicity of the Back-Me game. There's something nice about that where it's just like you don't have to worry too much about any abilities or anything, but people are role-playing their characters and they're getting into it. I like the Pathfinder stuff where you're like, oh, I can really get into like optimizing my character, but sometimes that can kind of become the focus rather than, and people are always thinking, not our players, but like from what I've seen, and people are always thinking build, rather than I'm going to play the game and see what happens and then take feats and things to adjust to that, that kind of thing. So this will require some collaboration around the table around what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, what your games master or dungeon master, I should say, is going to put in front of you. You can say, I want to be a fighter, but I really want to be ranged, I want to do this stuff, or I want to be heavy armored, or I'm a cleric and I really like the idea of taking on undead, and you'll be like, okay, cool, and the dungeon master can throw some nice undead in there and everything. So yeah, it should be an interesting, hopefully a bit of a collaborative process, because the fighter player will be saying to the cleric player, I need to go to this place, I need to kill, I need to go and practice my sword fighting, so I need to fight some more bad guys. And the cleric will say, oh, that's okay, because I need to cast some healing spells, so we're both good, so let's go. It should be fun. Right, cool. Okay. I think that's probably enough on my version of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm gonna thank you for everybody for coming on tonight. It's been great for some new people to get involved in the chat and comment and give me some questions and things. It's really cool, really helps to keep this kind of stream going. I'd love to be able to do more of this kind of thing in the future. And hopefully when my study is finished, I will be able to, pop on and occasionally do the odd bit. Done already? No, not done already. When it's done, I will be able to have my own zone, and I'll be able to think about more videos. I'm thinking about doing some videos about DMing or GMing, whatever you want to call it, but using clips from our videos, from our actual play shows, as examples, so you can see them in action, rather than, there's loads of advice channels and they're great, there's some really good stuff, but there's a difference with like saying it and doing it. So it's going to be interesting. I've got things that, there's various topics I think we could talk about off the bat, but I'd need a little time to just like find some good clips in our videos. I think we could do some good stuff on maps, stuff on how to start sessions, stuff on how to deal with crazy players, like Simon and Jim, and all that kind of stuff. So sounds like a lot of work. It would be a lot of work, and that's the thing. That's why I need to have a think about it. And what I'd want to do is create a bunch of them and release. So like create like 5 or 6, and there'd be short videos. There'd be 5 to 10 minutes, and I would release a few to begin with to see what the interest was like, and have a few in the bank to release once a week, and then at the next opportunity film another bunch, and then release a couple, release once a week, and then film another bunch and release once a week. So maybe every month I could sit down for a few hours and film a few videos, on DMing tips from the table, literally like, here's what we did, what was I thinking, never do this, and talk through what was going, and the objective of it never to be like critiquing of the players, but always about my GMing and running of games. And I think, Sharadel, you're absolutely right. Some shorter DMing videos would be good to generate some YouTube traffic as well, which, we have to think about these things. Today we hit 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is fantastic, but it's taken us way too long to get to 4,000 subscribers. So we need to kick it up a notch, and I think some shorter videos to work with the algorithm, DMing videos, people like those. I think that could work, and I think our USP would be, and here is us actually doing it. Look, here is the video, and I could literally be on the screen chatting away, and then like, boom, I appear and I say, roll initiative, and I'm like, combat. This is how we do combat. That kind of thing. I think that could work really well. It will be tricky to do, but if I could do it, I think it would be really cool. And I think that would be how I could do DMing videos a bit differently. I think I'm a competent DM. I think I run a good game. So and I've got stuff to say about it. I just thought, how would I do something that's different from everybody else, or not just, bearded dude talking to the camera. I thought, hang on, we've got all these videos, we've got hundreds of hours of videos. There must be good bits and bad bits that I can use, as examples. So that would be cool. Oh, thank you, Sharadel. Cool. Okay, right, well, so thank you very much for joining us. Now, rest of the week. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we haven't got Lex Arcana. I think we may have something from Millie, but I don't want to say in case it doesn't happen. But there was talks of a game, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. I haven't seen it sort of materialize yet on the Discord, but occasionally it does happen very quickly and very short notice. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. So keep an eye out on the Discord in case Millie pops up with a xenomorphic surprise. Thursday we've got Dune, so we've got the next episode of Siege Abicat, and we are, if you haven't watched it, you need to go and watch Siege Abicat. I think I need to upload the episode 1, to be honest, onto YouTube, which I will do very, very soon. Then later on Thursday we've got Achtung Cthulhu with the Romanian Imperative, and the guys are getting in trouble already, and lots of fun and World War II mythos, horrible things, and Aaron has got a lightning gun, which is always fun. And then on Friday I think we've got Monsters of the Week. I think Leon's running Monsters of the Week. Are you there, Leon? Are you around? I'm not sure if Bubble Ridge is still in the chat. May have gone to bed. Shadow, that's true. Aaron is probably the first. If you found an experimental weapon, the first person you'd ask to try it out would be Aaron, because he would be most likely to be able to use it properly. So that makes sense. So that's Friday, and then lapping back round to next week. Next Tuesday we'll have Roads and Ruins again, and if we don't, I might do another one of these. But we should have Roads and Ruins again. And the plundered smithy has been located, and this strange Messer-like earth structure with kind of really wide rail going into. It's like 10 foot wide, like 8 foot separated rails, like big, deep trucks going in and out of this place. They've seen hobgoblins have taken over. The forces of Braktagar have come in and taken over the plundered smithy. Who knows who is there and what they're doing, but it's clear that something hot is going on inside the smithy because there's smoke and steam coming out the top of it. So clearly they're doing something. Monsters of the Week is powered by the Apocalypse, and it's been a long time coming playing Powered by the Apocalypse on the channel, and and we've got the Anderson verse going on. So a series of one shots that are going on. Either Lewis or Ben GMing so far, and on Friday I think Leon is GMing, and kind of alternating with a variable cast. Really cool stuff. Lots of horrible things going on, and it's as a Sharadot says, it's amazing. So that's cool. Yeah, so then looping back around to next Tuesday, Roads of Ruins again, and hopefully no more player character deaths, but you never know. Right, anyway, thanks very much for watching. I had a lot of fun, and I thought I was going to do a bit more writing than I did, but it's good to like talk about it, and I'm always kind of cementing these thoughts in my head and the idea of where it's going. So it's really useful for me to like, because I'm sitting here on my own, kind of like figuring these things out in my head and randomly posting a few things to Twitter or stuff. People go, "Ooh, like that," but like to reason it out and then see people go, "Oh, that sounds cool," or not. You know, that's very useful. So next time I may just have some more stuff to update on if I do this again. And thank you very much for watching. This is Garblack Games. Stay safe and happy gaming.